I'd like to welcome you to this morning's information session designed to help all of us learn more about Bullhead Island's transportation, electronic ticketing, and reservation system that's being launched soon. I'd like to thank Chad Paul of Bullhead Island Limited, the CEO, and Byone Stewart, the COO, Bullhead Island Transportation, for taking the time today to help our membership contractors, employees, and others understand their plans. We appreciate it. Before they get started, I wanted to give you a few pieces of information to help this session go well, both for those who are in the room and those joining us by Zoom. As I understand it, we have more than 100 individuals registered to participate remotely today. Once Chad and Byone have concluded their presentation today, all of us here in the room and those joining remotely will have the chance to ask questions. For those in the room, at the appropriate time, please come up to the podium to ask your questions. Please state your name, and if you're a property owner, it would be helpful to let us know your on-island address. For those participating online, please, quote, raise your hand, close quote, by clicking on the yellow hand located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. At the end, we'll call your name and ask you to mute yourself so you can ask your question. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be made available on BHA's YouTube channel 24 hours after the session. You will also find the video and the presentation by Chad and Byone on a special page on BHA's website at baldheadassociation.com. You can find the link on the right side of the homepage. One last thing, there will be a second information session similar to this one on Tuesday, May 30th at 2:30 p.m. here at the Association Center. Please pass along this information to others you believe might want to attend. Thanks to everyone for coming. Chad, Byone.
Thank you, Alan. Couple of things. What we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of intro, a little bit of history, and then we're going to go through the presentation on where we're going to try and take transportation relative to addressing some of the issues that we learned about during COVID, and primarily the issues that we learned about and we're preparing for prior to COVID. Okay. When it comes to electronic ticketing, this is something that we have been working on since 2017. So why now? A couple things that happened. In 2017, we tried to launch the Bullhead Island Transportation Authority. We're not going to get into why that hasn't shaken out. It's not for this forum. For us to implement electronic ticketing on top of trying to transition to authority, an authority was deemed probably not a good idea to do that. So we didn't do that. Then we had Hurricane Florence. The aftermath of Hurricane Florence, we learned a lot. There was a lot that went on. We're not going to be able to go ahead and repair and rebuild the island after Hurricane Florence and launch an electronic ticketing system into that season. Then we got hit with COVID. Now, the great thing about COVID was we learned a lot about the slack in the system. We learned about the lack of the slack in the system. We also learned about, well, we can let go some of our subjective rules and not be so objective. Trying to get back into being a little bit more objective with how we run transportation has been difficult. The other thing that's occurred is over 50% of the island's ownership has turned over in 5 years. And there's some folks that have been here in this room that have been here 30 years. And there's one thing that I've learned in the 12 years since I've been here is that the island has to continually relearn things, even though it's the same old thing. A couple of other things. When I got here in 2010 and I was on the board of the Mitchells, 5 years prior to that in 2006, the highest peak construction on Bullhead Island was 65 homes. That was in 2002. We built every one of those homes. We are seeing a major building boom in the last 2.5 years on the island. How that impacts transportation, how that impacts the barge, how that impacts the traffic on Bald Head is ginormous. It's a big deal. The question is how do you take a privately owned ferry system that is regulated in terms of rate, tariffs, and build that to withstand the entire year? You can't build it for July 4th weekend and run it that way throughout the whole year. It would be financially above and beyond all of our abilities to do that. So with that construct, we have good data. We've been working on this for a long time. Putting the politics aside, the Mitchells, I was very clear with them. Frankly, it doesn't matter who owns the transportation system. We need to move to an electronic platform that will allow the ability to do reservations, that would allow the ability to do ticketed baggage, that would get us ready for the event where TSA shows up and says, now you're gonna have to scan every bag. You're gonna have to check every passenger before they get on that vessel. So some of the folks that have been here that are new may not understand, but when you go to Bald Head at Deep Point, that entire terminal is set up where you can pre-scan and you see the gates, you can close the gates off just like at an airport. The upper terminal, there's a conveyor that's hidden. In that conveyor, we can install baggage scanning equipment. Hope we don't have to do that, but we need to continue to move forward with the rest of the transportation system across the planet. That's a little bit of the backdrop in terms of where we are. We received about 38 questions directly via email to Bayona and I. We will try to address those questions within the presentation. If we don't, we'll discuss those questions. A couple of the other questions about the Utilities Commission. Where is the order that says that we're allowed to do electronic ticketing? There is none. People need to understand the Utilities Commission controls rates. They will not allow us to increase ticket rates that will exceed our statutory rate of return of 8.33%. The other place where the Utilities Commission can come involved with operations is during emergencies. So for example, on COVID, we had every agency, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, they were even telling us what to do. Okay, so we've got the county that has their rules. We've got the governor that has their rules. We've got the Coast Guard that has their rules. Coast Guard is doing exactly what the president's telling them. That's who tells the Coast Guard what to do. There was some mass confusion on what we could do and how we're supposed to do and who we're supposed to listen to. And just so people know, when the boat leaves the dock, the captain's in charge and the Coast Guard runs the show. That is our primary operation regulators, the U.S. Coast Guard. So in terms of the Utilities Commission having impact on how we operate and how we run a private business, they really don't have a whole lot of input on that other than as it impacts ticket prices. Okay. In terms of ticket prices, most utilities are in and having what they call a rate case every 24 to 36 months. The Mitchells have owned and operated transportation for 35 years. They've had one ticket price increase in 35 years. 2010, ticket prices went from $15 to $23 on the general fare ticket, and then the other classes followed suit. Only one time have we had a rate case. Why is that important? I would suggest that if you look at the financials that we file, the Mitchells have never earned their statutory 8.33% rate of return. In terms of the people in the room here, the most recent experience has been the COVID disruptions, and they were brutal. The other thing that has changed is when I got here, we operated and owned every single commercial outlet on the island. The market, the spa, all of the restaurants, every single commercial outlet on the island except the Baldwin Island Club. We had turned that over when I was on board. Shoals Club, you name it. Most of you that are island residents or property owners will notice the signs that have been down at the terminals for years that employee passengers will stand aside until the boat is boarded. Well, when all those employees had our logo on, they stood aside. We sold those businesses off. We've transitioned those businesses off. Those businesses have, you know, they're running their schedules, they're doing their things, they're trying to work with their employees. We've been laxed in not forcing that. The way the main ferry runs is this: employee ticketed passengers will board last on an available basis. We run into a problem mostly with that on Saturdays during season at 4:30 in the afternoon, when everybody wants to get off at the same time. So what we're going to do is with the electronic ticketing reservations and where we're going to move forward, we'll be able to monitor that and track that. So there's more certainty, not only for the employees that just want to come and go to work and get back home, but for all yous that want to get off on the island. So we're going to go through those processes. The other thing that's different and unique is, notwithstanding the frustrations that we all have with the system, there is no other system in the United States or in North America that runs 30-minute boats on a 2-minute delayed time interval for bumps and for on-time performance. We're running 8,000 round trips a year. 8,000 runs. We're transporting close to 400,000 people round trip, 800,000 passengers. And everybody here knows it's great as long as it's running in the background. But boy, when there's a problem, everybody knows there's a problem, right? So part of that is we've got some really good data internally relative to what happened during COVID, how we do that. I certainly don't like seeing the lines on Saturdays when everybody's trying to get over at the same time. That's the other thing, that the Mitchells created a wonderful thing, a system that's running 30-minute boats, 8,000 round trips a year. In some regards, it doesn't walk and talk and feel like an island. Park your car, you get on, you go. It's like a bridge. It's not really an island. As the island's maturing, the logistics on the island, not with transportation, but the logistics on the island is having trouble keeping up. So for example, you know, people will say, hey, we run more boats, run more boats. Well, all we're doing is taking all of that mass and dropping it on the infrastructure of the island. And all we're doing is moving the pig and the snake from Deep Point and dropping it right over here for Chris McCall and public safety to try to figure it out, or for you guys to figure out how to do it. So the whole idea, this is not a new idea. This is something we've been working on a long time. What was really terrific is hiring Bayonne. We'll let Bayonne talk a little bit about his background. Not only was he sector commander for North Carolina, you know, he basically, and I will joke about this politically, he was the lead liaison for the Coast Guard in the Congress with the Senate and the House. And he told me the other day that the politics up there is actually not as near as a disaster, the politics here. We'll let him speak to that. Couple of things to start off with. If you want to pull a paper ticket and do it just like you've been doing for the last 35 years, you're going to still be able to do that. We are not going to drop in a reservation system that crowds out y'all in the room. That's not what we're going to do. The idea is we have the data to every boat, every run of the day going back 35 years. The idea is to allow some level of reservation, but have plenty of room for the standby opportunities. The difference will be is if you want to ride standby and catch the next boat, that's great. But you may end up getting bumps and missing that boat, just like you would today if you ran down there and got down there early or late and had to wait. What we're also going to do is this is only going to be implemented for the main passenger ferry. No reservation on the contractor employee ferry. Why is that? We have a lot of contractors that ride that boat that don't have a PDA cell phone. We have a lot of contractors that ride that boat that do not have credit cards. They need to be able to buy a paper ticket for cash and get in line and go. The other issue we have is how do we balance someone like Limited that has the financial resources to buy out the entire 730 contractor employee boat? Not just today, for the whole summer. That would be very disruptive to folks like Claude and the business owners around here. So electronic ticketing, yes. Reservations, and again, we're going to go through the presentation how we're going to do that. The reservation piece is not going to be in an effort to crowd out anybody. It's an effort so that we can have some certainty around where we are. Baggage. I'm confident I will get a baggage question. We want to be careful how we answer that baggage question. I would suggest there is not the residents that I'm looking at right now. The resident population has not had a problem with bringing baggage to the island. If you as a resident have had problems bringing baggage to the island, exceeding 3 bags plus a carry-on, you need to let me know. I'm going to leave it like that. We did get busy on 3 bags per ticketed passenger starting in February. That was primarily related to the contractors. What was happening is the contractors recognized the wonderful opportunity. They could buy a $23 ticket, get a tram ride to and from their job site, and bring 3 bags and a carry-on. The problem is that they moved from, or they were relying on the old COVID days and what was going on vis-a-vis after Florence, where now they're trying to bring 4x8 sheets of plywood and giant table saws and things like that on the main passenger ferry. And that's not what that's about. So we did start to limit it. It's been, you've got to bring it in a closed container or in a zip bag. Those have been the rules for a long, long time, going back a decade. The ticketing system does allow us to print baggage tags, just like you are at the airport, put them on each bag and track that bag to that ticket to that boat. Are we going to throw that into the mix right now? No, we're not. But if TSA were to come along and start to hamstring us a little bit, we have that ability to do that. The software we're looking at is not, we didn't invent this. So some of the folks that have been here a long time, I'm looking at Claude. The current tram reservation system, our IT folks wrote that code. The current systems we run on for accounting, our IT guys wrote that code. The system we're going on now is a third-party system. It's been tested across the world. We had to make some unique changes. One, we had to be able to tie in the tram reservation to the tariff classes that you can do for a tram reservation and make that seamless, like when you go online to buy your airline tickets, right? That was one big jump we had to do. The other thing we had to deal with is the bulk 80 and the bulk 40 tickets in particular. Well, 80 is easy. That's not going to be a problem. But the bulk 40, you can book a tram ride, right? So what do? You buy a bulk 40 pack. You've got to have a system that will allow you to either use that bulk 40 ticket to just go on standby or wait in line, first come, first serve, or go online and book a specific ride and tram ride and tariff and trip on the ferry on that bulk 40. iCards. We've really had to go through it. We've worked with the development team now for over 8 months with the software folks on this. They've been here, they've been to the island, they've seen the operation. So I feel as good as you could feel. My original choice ended up not being who we went with. I had, Bayonne and I went to a couple of the Passenger Vessel Association conferences, and we went to one 2 years ago, and we had the list. And I told them, I said, I think this group is going to be really, really high. And the reason why I knew that is that they had done the Casco Bay ferry system up in Maine and tied the Casco Bay ferry system to the bus system. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They can get that done. But in the end, out of the 5 vendors that we narrowed it down to, they actually came in last. And that surprised me. But when we actually got through it all, they came into the bottom of the barrel. So with that, we're going to try to answer those questions within the presentation. Then we'll open it up to the audience here, and then we'll open it up to the folks online. But I'm going to pass it on over to Bayonne and let him run with it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It dawned on me as I was coming down this morning that most of you, unless you happen to watch the last hearing online up in Raleigh with the Utility Commission, you probably never heard from me before. You may have heard my name, may have seen my large stature running around the terminal every once in a while, but I thought I'd take a couple of minutes just to introduce myself. Bayonne Stewart, I retired from the Coast Guard in 2021. And as Chad had mentioned, I became familiar with the Bald Head Island ferry system when I was one of the regulators, when I was the captain of the port here in North Carolina. Wrapped up a 32-year career as the chief of staff of the Coast Guard's 5th District, which oversaw operations from New Jersey down to South Carolina. So I have a lot of time on the water. I have a lot of time in the maritime industry. And when Chad approached me, word got out that I was retiring. He presented an opportunity to do what I'm passionate about, which is execute missions. And the way I look at the Bald Head Island ferry system is this is a mission. We have to get the mission done. And so when I look at opportunities to improve mission performance, I'm looking at the full scope. I'm looking at re-engineering boats. I'm looking at operational issues. How do we coordinate better? How do we move smoother? How do we build efficiencies in the system? One of the first things that Chad had presented to me when we were talking about coming on board was the electronic ticketing system. And I was actually surprised that it didn't exist already and hadn't existed for a while. So jumped in with both feet on this process, and I'm excited to be able to try and help alleviate some of the fears, maybe correct some of the rumors that have been going around, and make you feel more comfortable with what we're trying to do. And trust me, you know, if I throw out a few military terms, please excuse me, but we war game this thing for the last 8 months, every single day, just trying to think of all the things that could potentially go wrong. And as we looked at the vendor, the capabilities of the vendor, our processes, our tariff, and every possible nook and cranny, even the back end side. You guys probably, some of you probably own businesses. One of the most important things you can do is make sure your accounting is squared away. Even that was a major focus of how we developed this system, to try to make, when we get to the point where we do the implementation, we try to make this as seamless an experience for our customers as possible. So that's our goal. And that's what we're here today, is to try to answer your questions and try to give you some insight on how this is going to work. Now, I'm going to say up front, and I kind of add a line at the bottom of the presentation, we are going to trip. We may fall flat on our face at certain times, but we are in a position to fix those errors as soon as possible. We have a great partnership with the vendor that we're working with. I'm on the phone with them at least once a week, if not twice a week, and constantly correcting issues as we've gone through the development process. So they're not going to drop us out there on our own and say goodbye and thank you for your money. They are a partner with us, and it's really built an opportunity for us to really improve the customer experience across the board. Homeowners, property owners, businesses, we are looking forward to making your interaction with our company based on how you want to do it, not how we want to do it. If you want to buy a ticket at the window, you buy a ticket at the window. If you want to make a reservation online, make a reservation online. It's all about giving you more choice in how you use the service we provide. And that was our goal. And I hope we can continue to improve that service as we move forward. So I'm looking forward to going through the presentation, but I'd like to kind of set the framework. And for the folks that are listening online, feel free to interact as well. Real quick show of hands. How many folks have purchased an airline ticket online in the last decade? Okay. Bought a ticket to a movie or show or anything else? Okay. If you have engaged in commercial or in commerce online in the last 10 to 15 years, this system will not be foreign to you. It is very similar to what you've seen when you go on to buy anything, any ticket, any event, anything like that. So with that in mind, we'll walk through some of the specifics of what you're going to see when either you download the app. And that was one of the other selection factors. Believe it or not, I can be kind of a detail-oriented kind of guy. I put together a 3-page list of basically requirements that we were going to need to have from the vendor before we went forward. I gave that to Chad and I said, when we sit down with each of these vendors, they need to answer all these questions for us. And that's what we did. And that's how we ended up with the vendor we have now. Like Chad said, we were rather surprised when we saw what we were looking at out in Cincinnati at the time. But this was the only vendor that already had within their system a companion app, so that folks would have the ability to do things mobilely if they needed to, or they can do it at home online. So again, it's all about choice and the ease of interaction with our services. So that was our goal.
The app was the only vendor at the time that had an app that allowed you to download your ticket into Apple Wallet. The others had apps, but had not worked with Apple on how to make your ticket permanently within your Apple Wallet. So if you had a bulk 80 ticket or a bulk 40 ticket, that ticket sits in your Apple Wallet. The other vendors had the ability to do the app, but you had to keep your ticket either via text or through an email or some other way to call that up. They had already solved that with Apple Wallet and the equivalent with the Android.
So one quick comment, when we had that discussion about the politics, it's actually a little bit flipped. What I was saying is when I get frustrated trying to work through the political realities, and there are everywhere you work and everywhere you go, Bald Head Island is no different than any other place that I've lived and worked. The difference on the Hill was I had the Senate, the House, and the Coast Guard leadership all had to be somehow coordinated, and I had to translate across the line. So sometimes I was a detailed analyst, sometimes I was a marriage counselor, and sometimes it was just a series of psychotherapy sessions to try to get everyone online and really moving forward for the betterment of my primary purpose was for the betterment of the Coast Guard. And of course, our service to the American people. So you guys are doing what all communities do, and I understand it. And we appreciate the feedback we get, and we take that feedback seriously. And part of this is based on all that feedback that's been provided to the transportation system since I've been on board and even before. So with that, wanted to structure this as to why are we doing this? What does it look like? And how are we going to implement it? Of the 35-ish questions we received online, they all largely fell in very similar buckets, largely aligned with these. And I was surprised to read through the questions, and the vast majority of it we had already answered in this draft presentation. So hopefully we'll be able to cover a little bit more ground. I knew it. So Sherry came up to me and she says, do you want to use the clicker? And I have had disaster experiences with clickers before. And so I gave in and I was like, okay, we tested it. And then of course it didn't work. Thank you, Carrie. All right. So I think this is exciting news. I know there's some trepidation and folks are a little bit worried about what they might have heard about what this is. But this is giving, like I said, a lot of options for you to interact, make your own plans, make your travel plans, how you would like to do it. Really, if you want to just order something online and print it out, some folks like to buy their plane ticket online, but they like to print out a paper boarding pass instead of putting it on their phone. Assuming you're willing to give us an email when you purchase your ticket online, you can do that at home. You can have it sent by text to your phone. You can transfer it to your Apple Wallet if you have that system, that phone, like Chad mentioned. Chad already went through why we chose to only focus reservations on the passenger ferry. This again is related to a lot of the interactions with the island and how the island travels back and forth. And by the island, I mean everyone who uses it: visitors, renters, day trippers, contractors, residents, property owners, et cetera. And so that bottom line, this is one of the most common questions we got is, are we going to have a reservation to ride the ferry? And the answer is no. You can come up, you can buy a ticket at the window, and you're not going to have to do that. It might be nice if you've got some ability to plan your trip to get online and make sure that you can get on board, because reserved passengers will get first access onto the boat. But, and I'll talk about this a little more, we planned ahead to address some of those concerns that only reservations are going to be allowed on board. And I'll get to that later as we go forward. I'm going to give it another shot. Oh, a double click, my bad. All right. So again, I'm not going to read through each of the bullets, but one of the other factors that drove us to want to try to implement electronic ticketing reservation system is really predicting and in some ways allowing some control of the flow. One of the biggest impacts to on-time performance is flow. And flow includes not just passengers, but also baggage. Baggage is a huge, huge deal, and we've already talked a little bit about that. But we are trying to look at ways that folks, renters that or day trippers that may want to take a trip to the island, they go online, they go to buy a ticket and they see, wow, all 100 reservations are filled up. Maybe instead of the 10 o'clock boat, they decide to come a little bit earlier, or they come at 11. And so that gives us the ability to maybe even out the flow throughout the day. It's much easier to control 150 folks waiting to get on to the ferry than 600 people waiting to get on the ferry. And then of course, with all the baggage, one of the things that Chad mentioned, how many runs we make compared to some other ferry systems. What no other ferry system is doing is carrying 3 million pounds of baggage every year. So, this was something that was brought up at the last hearing of the Utility Commission. There's a lot of ferry systems that carry cars and stuff, but if that baggage isn't in your car or you can't walk on and off the boat with it, it isn't going. We provide a very unique service that is very labor intensive and very time intensive. And so when we get those huge crowds that line up along the driveway there, that is very, very difficult to manage. You all have seen it. You've been here around the holiday weekends when it seems like the piles of bags are never ending and the cars lined up on the deep point side, they go all the way up back to the stop sign. And so if we can somehow get folks to maybe shift their travel by allowing reservations at certain times that allows to level out that flow, we'll have a much higher probability and possibility of keeping our performance where we want to keep it. So that was one of the key areas. And then I'll point your attention to the last part. And even today, this is a perfect example. So yesterday we posted an alert on our webpage about potential weather for this afternoon, and particularly this evening, when it is going to get bad. And there will become a point when it will be unsafe to operate the ferries. I served on 6 cutters, I was the XO2 and commanded one of them. And I can tell you that it doesn't matter where you live, what you do, what you're riding on, how big or how small, Mother Nature always gets the last word. And my most important metric for what we do is that every single time you get on that ferry, you get off of it in the same condition. And your safety is my #1 priority. And if that means I wait a couple of minutes to make sure everything is safe before we pull away to the dock, that's going to happen. That's the captain's priorities as well. And so that last part allows us that when we know we have an event coming up, we know we have a major equipment casualty, and trust me, boats break. How many folks own a boat in the room? They break, all right? And especially when you run them as hard as we do. But we'll be able to actually, if you purchased a ticket and we have your email or we have your phone number that we've texted you a ticket, we can push out to you an alert on your phone and you will know. Instead of having to passively wonder and then get online, we will be able to push out alerts on the system to say, the ferry system is delayed, the ferry system is experiencing severe weather. We will need to cancel, canceling runs if we need to, if it's unsafe to operate, things like that. So we'll have the ability to communicate better with you than we are able to now. And so that's one of the other big advantages to this system. Now, there's been some question, do you have to give your email? Do you have to give your phone number? If you're purchasing online, we need some of that information. If you're going to the window, we don't need any of that. You can still come up and, be Jane and John Doe and purchase a ticket and get on the ferry, and we won't know anything other than the fact that you purchased a ticket and you're right. So there's but I think that last bullet is going to be one of the things that over time, I think folks will learn to value even more. So what's it going to look like? This is a picture, this is a screenshot, and I'll caveat that we pulled a lot of these screenshots in about the midpoint development, because one of my focuses, and Chad and I talked a lot about it, was making sure that we had the ability to communicate. And so I wanted to be able to represent what you were going to see when you get online. We're confirming today whether the app is available for download on Android, but the app for iPhone is available for download. It's not allowed to, you're not allowed really to do anything on it yet because our system isn't
But
fully
we
set up.
did have somebody already pull it down and purchase tickets on it, and we had to figure out how to refund them. So someone out there, we had it up on the test thing. Somebody actually went online and looked for the app. They got the app, they bought their tickets, and we're like, wait a second. It was supposed to be just a test dummy for us. And one of y'all went and bought tickets. So we do know this, we can refund it back. We know we can do that, and we can get the purchase.
Yeah, so they actually bought 6 general fare tickets after they went through a number of different ticket purchases and then canceled them. But very interesting. Wait, how did I look at that? First part, disappointing that their first interaction on our app wasn't real. So, and that we couldn't execute the transaction with them as they had hoped. But the second part was that even without knowing that the app was even available, it demonstrated to me that there is an organic demand for this capability. Some people will appreciate being able to use this. So I kind of, on the one hand, we had a kind of a little fumble at the beginning, but on the other hand, it reinforced the purpose for why we're moving forward with this. So really, a lot of it is drop-down menu driven. You can get online. It'll walk you through the entire process. Right? You'll have the option for the type of ticket. The passenger ferry is on top. Then you have the option to buy contractor ferry tickets, which will be employee and contractor. And remember, the reason they're in 2 different sections is because the top section allows reservations, the bottom section does not. The second one down does not. The calendar will show up. You'll be able to pull it up. Again, if you bought an airline ticket anytime in the last decade, this is not going to be foreign to you. You can choose where you want to go and choose the type of ticket class you want, and it'll walk you through the process. Now, what we've already also done is we've included the ability to pay for enhancements or additional services, whether that's additional baggage or whether that's the tram service, if you want to use the tram service. Because you may recall, sometimes you get sent back, or some folks get sent back to the window and they have to buy an extra baggage ticket or something if they bring a whole lot of stuff. What we're trying to do is build that into the transaction process again to build efficiencies into how customers interact with us. Theoretically, you could go online, purchase a ticket, pay for your additional baggage or whatever additional kayaks or whatever you want to bring on board, make your tram reservation, even get the weekend bicycle pickup service, which will be included in the tram reservation portion, and then go straight in line and never actually have to stand in any line but to board. Okay. So again, this is meant to build in some efficiencies with how you interact with us and how we're able to provide service more efficiently for you. The other nice thing is when you do book a ticket and then you purchase the ticket, you make a reservation for the ferry, and then you choose to use the tram service, it will automatically set up the time for that tram service to coordinate with your arrival and your departure. Let's go back one portion. So see on the left-hand side where it says My Tickets? So once you've purchased a ticket, your ticket will remain in your app. And you can go back to that My Ticket. Let's say something happens, you don't want to leave at 4 o'clock or you don't want to arrive at 10 o'clock on that day. You can go into My Tickets and you can change your reservation yourself. And you can update your reservation. You can even decide to cancel your trip and you can initiate a refund to your credit card. All that can be done without having to come to our window. Okay, this is all within your capability and desire, depending on how you want to interact. And you can do the same thing on the website.
But you can still come to the window.
Yeah, we're not discouraging you from coming to the window. We're just giving you the option if you choose not to. And a lot of things, and especially initially, if there's some confusion or some problems, we have the ability within the internal system to make adjustments that you won't be able to make yourself online. So if you do have a problem, you need to call the ticket window and say, hey, I need to do something that the app isn't letting me do. We can log in, we can take your confirmation number, we can see what you booked and then make adjustments internally. We have a lot more, let's call it permissions to do some things that are not immediately available to the customer. So this is, the type of ticket that you're purchasing and the enhancements. And this one here is particularly for the tram reservation. It'll ask for your street number and address. What we've also done is some folks are going to a business, may not know the street address or something like that. We're having it set up. It's not on this screenshot. What it will do is you can go ahead and fill in where you're wanting to go. Say you just want to ride to the market. Put market in there. You don't have to put the street name in the drop down. It'll say other location. You just click that and it'll log it into our system so that when they pull up the report to sequence the trams and assign you a tram, they'll know where you're going.
That was another big part of this vendor. So most of the electronic ticketing software vendors that have and utilize maps, they use Google Maps. The problem with Google Maps is that it's not accurate for the island. Right. So you've got and then you have the double whammy of you have a vacation rental guest that doesn't know the address. They just knows the nickname of the house. Well, all our tram drivers know every nickname of every house, right? So what we did is this vendor allowed us to basically load, I think it was almost 3,000 different street addresses on Baldhead, tie that with the name of the house so that it's seamless and it's not, it looks and walks and talks and feels like Google Maps, but it's not Google Map data, so that people don't end up at the wrong place so they don't know where they are. If you know the nickname of the house and or you know the address, we're going to get you there. But that was another big reason that this vendor was overwhelmingly part when we got into the tram piece was Google Maps, as some of you may know, on Baldhead is not accurate.
So you'll see the drop down at the street address. They're already all listed in there. And those were largely built off the database that we already have been building through the current system owner several years. At the end, what you'll end up getting is a QR code. How many folks are not familiar with the QR code yet? Okay, QR code is like a barcode. Yeah, so it just carries more information and allows a quick scan into the system that will basically validate that you have a ticket, and it will initiate all the actions that have to carry forward in terms of your reservation and everything else. And this ties directly not just our system itself, but it also ties in the scanner. And we'll talk a little bit more why that's important in a second. So this is really a screenshot of what you'll see on the website. It's very, very similar. And you know, the system, right, it'll be the same website essentially that we have now. We're working on it in the background on a secondary to try to work out some of the tweaks and kind of reconfigure and add a little bit more information to make it more user friendly for folks wanting to purchase tickets online, but it will look almost exactly the same. It's not going to be, you're not going to pull up baldheadislandferry.com and go, what is this? Because it's got our pictures, it's got our logos, it's got everything on there. Why do we do that? Again, because we want to continue to make this a familiar experience, but just something a little bit new for the folks. And so the whole system operates very much like the app. It's not a big change in how the system operates. And the go live, what we are looking at now is we have the vendor coming out the week of June 5th. So they go into an in-depth, now we've all been training for the last probably 4 months where we got to the point where we were actually going to get valuable training out of the system as it was developed. We'll have a 2-day in-depth training with the vendor to go in, and we're gonna really stress the system through the training process, find out what faults we have, what things we need to correct before we go live. Now that 2-day training system, that typically rolls into a go live date on the 3rd day, which would be Wednesday. But that decision is all on us. If we choose or we think that we're not ready to give you access to that experience, or that it's going to be too difficult for either you or for us to make this as seamless as possible, we have the ability to just continue what we're doing and then move on and maybe push to a different date when we've worked out some more of the bugs. Like I said, we've been testing this system really intensely for probably 4 months. Whether it's scanning, whether it's buying tickets, whether it's looking at the back end, we've been going through this. And like I said, we've been wargaming scenarios. Well, what about a contractor who doesn't want to buy electric tickets? Can we print them? And there's some challenges there and there's some opportunities there. So we've been working through all of that. And so right now, that's our plan. You may see this going live on June 7th. Or if we're not comfortable with it, then we'll keep working on it. Okay. And again, at the end, this is what you're going to get in your email, or you can also have it texted to you when you purchase your ticket online through the website. You'll get the same QR code, and again, you can just print this out. You can keep it in your email and open it up, and we'll be able to scan that QR code. Either through a text or through your email when it comes in. You have the ability, if you have multiple party members, you can forward that. You purchase 5 tickets for family members. You can forward that QR to your family members if they're not coming or traveling at the same time as you. We can accommodate that as well. The other nice thing is when you have larger groups, maybe you have a bigger family. Remember, we had to go through and scan each ticket as each person came through the line. Now we can, as long as the family's together, we can scan one QR code, that entire family shows up on our scanner, and we're allowed to put them all on. And so we're hoping to find a little bit of time savings, a little bit of ease there. The other thing is you're not gonna have to worry about losing your second ticket. You know, that as long as you don't delete it, and even if you do delete it, we have the ability, if you gave us an email or a phone number, we can go back in and regenerate that QR code and resend it to you. Okay. Bottom bullet there, what we found, and probably most of you experience, if you can keep it on your phone, it's really easy to pull back up, find it and use it. So the next step is kind of a lot of the questions related to what's the implementation going to look like? And things are going to change a little bit. Yes, you can still have that same ticket booth interaction with us, but at some point, there's certain things we have to start phasing out to fully leverage the advantages that this technology gives us. One of them is going to be transitioning from the hard plastic cards to a QR code that you'll want to put in your wallet or you want to keep on your phone somehow, that you're probably carrying it with you anyway. So why not have you carry one thing instead of multiple things, right? And over time, we have really looked at the transition to try to make it the least disruptive as possible. Now, there are going to be some folks that are going to have to come up to the window and transition old tickets out to new ones. We're going to try to make sure that that's a very easy process. But that may be a short-term inconvenience for the long-term benefits as we get this fully implemented. Yes, bulk tickets, if you already own bulk tickets, they're still good. You have 160 rides for the bulk 80 and you have 80 rides with the bulk 40. Well, the folks that have cards for the bulk 80s, those are already being, before we go live, all of that will be updated and imported into the new system, and those cards will remain valid.
Just like existing tram reservations. So if we go live on a Monday, but somebody did their existing tram reservations months ago for Tuesday, our IT and our teams will load all that in so that we don't have a hiccup where somebody booked a tram reservation 6 months ago and now they're not going to be required to go back and do this. We're going to take care of that.
Yeah, we have over 5,000 tram reservations that we'll import into the new system when we do the go live. So bulk 40, same thing now. So there are two challenges with the way the bulk 80s and the annual passes are set up. Because of the way they are set up, those two ticket classes right now will not have the ability to make a ferry reservation. Those are already not available for tram reservation. There are just so many technical issues with the transition that we weren't able to try to work that into the passenger ferry reservation function. And so the good news is most bulk 80 riders and most annual pass riders, you will likely have zero difference in getting on and off the ferry. I mean, you don't travel at peak times normally. The numbers are very, very small. We will be looking at some operational things that we can maybe do that will make it more, can't say guaranteed, but a higher probability you won't have any issues with getting bumped as a bulk 80 or an annual pass holder. But within the system, you will not be able to go in and get online and make a ferry reservation. Now, the bulk 40, we've been able to develop a coupon code. So the way that works is that you will receive a coupon code that when you decide if you want to go in online and make a ferry and a tram reservation with your bulk 40 ticket, at the end, you put your coupon code in and it's for charge transaction. And then what you will receive is the same thing that everyone else does, which is a QR code for that ride. And then all you need to do every time you decide you want to take a ride, you want to make a reservation, you can go in and do that and do a coupon code. If you don't want to do that, we still have the ability to, we've worked really hard on this. We will have the ability to print out 80 tickets like we do currently. Now, if you choose to go paper, you will lose the ability to make a ferry reservation. However, you will still be able to call in and get set up with a tram. Because that tariff, you are entitled to a tram reservation. So that will be your choice on how you want to work it. I know some folks like to buy the bulk 40s and kind of hand them out or distribute them. And it's just easier to do by paper. You do also have the option to share the coupon code. However, just be aware that when folks make a reservation with that coupon code and that QR code is scanned, that's a ride and it comes off the total. Okay, and then eventually you come to zero and you'll know that, well, everyone used up our tickets or whatever the case may be. But that's something that will be a slight change in management, decide how you want to interact and how you want to manage those tickets and those services. But we're trying to give you two options there. When we get to the next stage, when all of your, particularly with the annual passes and the bulk 80s, we will be transitioning away from issuing you a card, and we will issue you a QR code. And you can print it out, you can laminate it, you can put it in your wallet, you can keep it on your phone, however you want to keep it, but it will function the same as your card. It'll just be a system generated QR code instead of a barcode.
Yeah, just for the historical purposes. So remember, we've only had one rate case where we actually changed tariffs. I would suggest that the bulk 80 is the least used ticket class. People have found other ways to work with that. And the annual pass is even less. It's maybe 8 rides, a month or something. It's really, we're going to take care of those folks. But in terms of managing 800,000 passengers a year, those two classes of ticket are really not even on the radar. We're going to take care of those folks. We're going to keep doing that. That's part of the tariff. Those are the tickets we have. Remember, no change in any pricing, no change in any of the tariff classes of tickets that you want to ride. But in terms of, we've got the data on when those people ride and when those people don't ride. And we should not have issues taking care of the bulk 80 riders or the annual pass riders.
So employees really pretty much the same. Again, the current iCards that are issued to employees are still valid. We're importing all of those into the system. And then once we do replacements, they'll replace with a QR code. But as long as you have funds available in your employee account for those folks, or if you start buying individual tickets, however that works, but the system will be pretty much the same. And again, like I mentioned, we'll replace the QR codes, the cards with QR codes once we do renewals. So paper tickets that you already hold, I kind of alluded to this earlier. We'll have a system set up. Basically what you'll do is you'll turn your card in or your paper ticket in, it will be credited into the issuance of a new ticket. Whether you want a paper or you want to text it to you, you'll get a replacement QR code. We're kind of hoping that folks will do whatever transitions of old tickets they have within the 90 days after we go live. That number is fungible. We're not obviously going to be as reasonable as possible, but we think by that time it would be good for us to be able to move on and start focusing on the development and improvements with the new system instead of kind of dealing for an extended period of time with the legacy system.
Again, the biggest transition part of that would be the bulk 40 and the bulk 80, right? People buy those passes, they're not up. That's a lot of people sitting in the room. We'll take care of that. The data would say that when we had the rate case and we transferred tickets and tariffs, the only one we have is a guest that bought a ticket like 15 years ago that shows up and they want to use a ticket that's that old. It shouldn't be an issue for the primary bulk 40, bulk 80 users, and we'll take care of that.
So this is one of the questions is how are folks going to get on the ferry? So the passengers on the passenger ferry who have made reservations for that time slot will be boarded first. Now, anyone else, as long as we have 150 spots available or up to 150 spots available, everyone else will be either a walk-on or in a standby line. So the question is everyone going to have a reservation? No. We've looked at the data, and of course, this data is focused on the way we do business now. So I'm not sure You will be continually evaluating the data we get based on how many standby walk-on folks and how many folks we have making reservations. But right now, we've looked at it, and kind of the right balance to minimize disruption for us looks to be about making 100 passenger ferry reservations available online. Now, the reality is very rarely do we have 100 general fare tickets coming on board. Okay, maybe 50, maybe 30, maybe 75, but whatever is available up to 150 is available for anyone else who wants to ride that ferry at that time. And so we think that that number gives us enough space to really kind of get the benefit that we're hoping to get that I explained earlier with the reservation system, but still allow plenty of room for folks that generally will ride the passenger ferry, employees, contractors at the allowed time, last minute folks who decide to visit Bald Head Island, walk-on types, should be plenty of room for the most part. Now, like Chad mentioned, we can't predict when everyone's going to show up on a holiday weekend and things like that. And of course, the existing problem of bumps will probably show its face every once in a while. But looking at the data, we think that well above 90% of the folks that are used to traveling at a certain time in a certain way will get to continue to travel that way. Any disruptions obviously could create some problems. Late boats and things like that, there was a lot of questions about, well, what happens if I miss my reservation? The answer is you immediately can get back in line or get in the next available line for a standby, and we can override ticket. Just because you miss your reservation, you don't have to rebook. You can just get in line and get on like you would if you didn't have a reservation. Or if you know you're going to be late and you want to say, oh man, I'm not going to make the 2 o'clock run, you can get online on your app and you can move to the 4 o'clock, you can move to the 5 o'clock. And then you get back in line with the folks with reservations. But you're not going to lose your ability to get it. If you miss your run, your ticket doesn't disappear. You're not going to have to buy a new one or anything like that. Right? So what happens if we get behind? That is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges within the system. Essentially what happens is, say we drop a run, say we drop the 1 o'clock run and we're leaving at 2 o'clock for the 1 o'clock run. Those folks that had the 1 o'clock reservation will get priority. And then we'll fill everyone in down the line. I know there's probably, and again, what we're hoping is the system itself, if we get the full advantage of the reservation system, the likelihood of that happening reduces significantly as we get into the heavier periods. But it is a blunt reality of the volume that we're trying to move, particularly during peak times. So that may be one of the frustrations, but the reality is, again, you deal with that already under the current system. When we drop a run, you're still waiting in line, right? Well, we're hoping to make this a little bit less frequent and that the resolution happens faster as we try to catch up and get everyone moving as best we can. And then we are committed to having some folks available, particularly during the startup, to be down there in the corral, helping answer questions, helping direct traffic. Right now, there's going to be, we're still trying to figure out some of the physical separation, but we'll have reservations will go in one section, and then standbys will go in another section. And then we'll board the reserve people first, and then we'll probably be able to get, for the most part, obviously those exceptions of extraordinarily heavy traffic days, we'll be able to get most people on every ferry that they want to get on, which we do now, to be honest. I mean, there's really only a few peak times where we have a hard time getting people on the ferry when they want to get on the ferry.
So then we have a couple other things to think about too. So when Limited built the hammocks check-ins are on Thursdays. It's Thursday to Thursday is your hammock stay. If you want hammocks, you're staying at the hammocks. Why was that done? well, 25 years ago, was because of the turnover of turning over those houses over, cleaning those houses, getting those people in and out. Most of the people in this room can relate. If you were a rental guest at Bald Head, you're in, and we don't run it like most resorts. You want to get to the island and get into your house as soon as you can. And you want to wait until the last minute to leave, which means everybody wants to be on the 10 o'clock boat on Saturday to get over here. And everybody wants to be on the 4:30 boat off, to include all the folks that are working on those houses want to get off at 4:30. Well, if you tried to come, let's not even talk about the COVID experience. Let's go back to 17, let's go back to 18. If you did that and you came, you're likely gonna miss that 10 o'clock boat standing in line as a rental guest. And you're gonna be standing in line for a couple hours for boats to kind of lead that through. Now, as a rental guest, all the data is going to be available. You can go online and say, well, my gosh, the 10 o'clock is already fully reserved out. Yeah, I can roll the dice and try to get maybe one of those 50 standby tickets. And there will people that will do that. But at least now they can have some predictability about making a decision for themselves. Do they want to stand in line for several hours, or no, you know what? I'm going to take the 1 o'clock over instead and check in when I'm supposed to check in at 1 o'clock. So that alone will create operational efficiencies with the customer being able to make the choice. They can still choose to stand in line, or they can do the reservation on those high peak days and level that out. That'll also theoretically, and the data we've seen against other islands and other transportation systems, that will open up the opportunities for the ability to get employees, primarily on the weekends, on and off in those time slots, not just on the contractor employee boat and that reservation system. There will be opportunities to do that. Now, from my perspective, the biggest glitch that I see where we're going to have to work through this is going to be not to the island. It's going to be outbound from the island on Saturdays between 3:30 and 5:30. I think that the electronic system will help alleviate those issues that we have, but that is still peak travel time because of how we run our businesses on the island. We don't run them like an island. We run them like they're on the mainland, that people can just come and go when they want. So that's where we are going to be spending a lot of our time, is outbound Saturdays, call it 3 to 6. And on, for examples, like this coming Monday afternoon from 4 to whatever. Those are the times that we're going to be watching that. The other thing too is we're watching, and the club is generous to share their data with what's going on with temporary memberships. We have good communication with most of the rental agencies in terms of what their bookings are. I've gotten some emails that are kind of not really complaints, but well, what about this? And you get to the bottom of that question or statement, and what really it boils down to is that individual has figured out how they game the system, and they're not going to be able to game the system. So for example, in the past, there's been rental management companies would go and book the entire tram run for whatever, for their, this is gonna eliminate some of that gamemanship. The ability for people to come and drop their bags off at Deep Point, ride over on a private boat, go pick up their bags whenever they want, and then sneak on a tram. This is going to start to eliminate the ability for people to game the system. So the idea is that little bit of gaming that goes on creates massive inefficiencies and massive problems. When it comes to the baggage stuff, we're gonna keep doing it. It's an honor system. That's how we run it. I mean, if it's grossly obvious, it's not gonna be anybody in this room. But we need to eliminate the days where people drive up in their car and they pack in, the Walmart plastic bags at Deep Point and load all that on to the ferry. It's not going to be in a system that's going to abuse what the island residents and the property owners need to do. They need to go to Walmart. They need to go to Costco. They need to be able to bring their stuff back. We get that. And the good news is you're not trying to do that on the Saturday of 4th of July, right? So I want to be careful about how we answer baggage questions. I would suggest if you were an island resident or property owner and you have a specific issue with the policy, if you have a problem, you need to reach out to me. And there's a lot of residents in the room. And have I ever not responded to a phone call? Have I not responded to an email? We take care of it. The issue on the baggage and why we started to enforce in February was primarily the third-party contractors that were absolutely abusing the system and creating problems for you all and for us in terms of enforcement. So that's kind of where we're at. We're going to really need to all be patient with the crews, especially the summer help. We're going to get them up to speed. The great news is the younger folks that are working, they know how to do this stuff better than anybody in the whole planet. Don't worry about it. They'll take care of it. They'll figure out how to get your ticket from the website on your phone. They'll get it all set up and all that. Also too, this is not a new thing, but it's new for 50% of the residents. We have data limited through Baldwin on Transportation, has traffic data, has drop-off data in the tram, on the houses. We have data on all of you. That data.
We have numbers and quantities.
Yes. That data will not be shared with rental property management companies. It's not going to be shared with rental companies on that kind of stuff. We have to keep everything. When you buy something with a credit card, we have to keep the PCI compliant. There was all the history with the rumors was, Limited is keeping that data so that they can go market their real estate. That does not happen. It's never happened. That data, again, we have to be just like any other vendor. PCI compliant with your credit card, PCI compliant with your text message if you get a QR code, and PCI compliant on any email addresses you get. That data is not going to be used we're not going to sell that to a real estate agent on the island for them to go ahead and solicit you to sell real estate.
Yeah, well, just so you know, I'm kind of a pretty private person and I don't have any social media accounts or any of that. I don't have Facebook. The only thing that's still out there is because I'm too lazy to delete it is a LinkedIn account that I set up when I was getting ready to retire. And I was wondering if I was going to work again. So I am very, very sensitive to privacy matters. I think it's one of the most important rights that we have in this country. And so I'm making no effort to gather any information that isn't strictly required for us to conduct operations. Just so you know, that's just me. All right, so this is really the final slide. And what I want to reinforce is that we're here to help. We know this is going to be a transition for everyone that uses our service, both internally and externally. Trust me, I get just as many questions from the employees, and we have these hash out sessions on how things are going to work, because I know that you're not going to probably, for the most part, not going to be interacting with me on a daily basis. You interact with the boat crews and the ticket booth folks and the shuttle drivers, and they are going to be hopefully as up to speed as I am in a lot of ways to be able to assist you if you need help. Like I said, we're going to focus. I don't know if most of you guys maybe have sailed with Charlie or have talked to Charlie Wilson before, but he's already committed to standing down there and helping everyone through this process as well as best we can. So we're not just going to flip the switch on this and then say, hey, you guys try to figure it out yourself. We're going to try to do the best we can to make it as easy as possible to transition into the new system. And I think because we've kind of done a lot of the homework up front, it's not going to be as difficult as perhaps sitting here watching a few slides might seem. I think once you get on and you push the buttons and you do the drop down menus and we get through this initial transition period and you've got your QR code instead of your pile of 80 tickets, I think what you'll find is this is actually going to make a lot of sense. And we're not reinventing the wheel. There are companies out there that have done this for a decade and more. So we're just trying in a little ways, catch up at the time, give you more options, and then try to provide everyone that we serve a better customer experience. All right. So I think with that, we were ready to take in-person questions.
Come on up, yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Jenny Young, and I sent you several what if scenarios, and you answered most of them. Is there still a no frills? Sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm at 121 Steed Bonnet Wind. Okay, first question, is there still a no frills ticket?
Yes, anything that is in our tariff is still offered.
Okay. And so, what is to stop people using the contractor ferry? Because I still see people over Easter, they dropped their luggage to go over on the tram, and because there were lots of people, they went to the contractor ferry. Will the codes or something be different, or?
What we'll do is like now is if you're a general fare ticket or a regular ferry ticket passenger, you can go on
Okay.
on the contractor, you can ride the
Okay,
contractor.
if you don't have
If you-
luggage.
So the other issue boils down to is if, for example, when we have the busy season, we will run a luggage boat for all intents and purposes, and we'll run those people over on the contractor boat. That's kind of, we would plan to do the same thing. So the same thing that would happen in that event with the electronic ticketing is the same thing that could happen like it does today.
So operationally, additional runs and things like that we've done in the past, we'll be doing again. The other good thing about this system is when we do plan to run extra boats, we'll put those boats available, particularly if we're running an extra passenger ferry. We'll put those boats available on the schedule for reservation as well during the peak periods. And again, that's to kind of help smooth out the flow a little bit and give us a little bit more predictability on how we need to staff and accommodate some of the surge.
So as an example, this past weekend, we had a second bump boat running. And we had that boat running from 4 to 6. And the boat never bumped. And Charlie put the bump boat back away at 6. And we bumped every boat from 6 to 9. But we were looking at the historical data that said, for the most part, and the folks are here, we clear the situation probably between 6 and 7, even in the worst of the season. It was crazy. So we were looking at the historical data. Now, what's nice about this system is that those that were booking that reservation, as we see the reservations getting to 100, then we know, you know what? The momentum and the data use is going to say, no, you know what? We need that boat from 6 to 9, not from 4 to 6, where we're basing on old data. Now we have live data.
Because really what we do now is we kind of extrapolate ferry ridership with tram reservations. And that's not a direct correlation all the time. So that's, this system will allow us to do a more direct correlation to the reservations and the traffic that we can predict a little bit better.
Okay, so if I take a trip to Southport to do some errands and make a reservation to go and to come back, I'm pretty efficient. But if I'm delayed should I go online on my phone and change my reservation to come back? Or can I just come by and do standby and without changing anything?
Yeah, I mean, unless you've decided to go on a holiday weekend and come back and, try to get across on 10 o'clock ferry or something like that. My recommendation is probably gonna have no trouble just getting in line and coming off.
Okay, okay,
And again, your ticket doesn't disappear or doesn't invalidate or anything. We go through kind of an override because we know you're not on the ticket you made a reservation for, but that's not a problem.
okay. It probably maybe answers this last one. Okay, so like I have a doctor's appointment or something and at 10 a.m. and because of a wind or fog, the ferry's canceled. So let's say, missed the appointment. So I'm not going to do the ferry ride. Do I need to cancel at some point my reservation, or because I haven't checked in, I don't get charged? Or
What are you riding on?
I'm sorry,
What ticket are you riding on?
just,
Like-
just a regular.
Just a regular ticket? Well,
Yeah.
the ticket remains valid.
Okay. Okay, until it's used.
The ticket remains valid
Okay.
until it's used. The same process is if it's not what you planned, then you kind of go into the standby line.
Okay, great, thank you. Speak directly.
Morning, my name is Mark Deloso, 19 Bay Tree Trail. And I thank you, gentlemen. I think this will be a great system. I had 2 questions, now I have 3 based on it. So, but they're gonna be quick. I think I heard the answer to this one. When this is implemented, can I purchase my 40 bulk and get the discount?
It will be the same price as the tariff.
Okay. Now, right now, what I'm doing is buying the paper, 40 bulk, and my wife and I share them, like, take them when you need them. What happens to that? Is it all on my phone? I keep having to send her tickets?
You can share your QR code with her, or so here's where the bulk 40 challenge comes in. You can still get the paper tickets if you'd like, or you get the coupon code that allows you to generate a ticket when you plan to use the ferry. So if you have the coupon code, you just put that in, you say, I want to ride the 10 o'clock or the 10:30 off the island. And you plug that in, it'll generate a QR code for you. It'll be on your phone, no problem. Takes a couple minutes. You share that, or you and your wife share that coupon code. You guys can go in and do that on your own, however you want to do it. The challenge is if you don't want to make reservations, you just want to use the paper ticket, you have to buy those at the main terminal on Deep Point, and they'll print them out just like they are now.
No, so if I buy the 40, we can share the QR code, and make reservations until we're out of the 40.
Correct.
Okay, so I missed the no frills, like if I'm leaving and coming back in the same day, how does that work?
You have to purchase that at the window, and they will issue you a no frills QR code, and you can either have it printed out or text it to your phone, and it's works the same way.
Great, thanks for your time.
Yes.
My name is Tiffany Williams and my address is 313 North Bald Head Wine. And this is an employer question. So my employees cannot ride standby if I need to guarantee that they're over here at a particular time. So is the process now that I will buy a general fare ticket for them and book a reservation every single day of the week?
Well, your employees ride standby now.
Yes, but it's not really treated like that now.
So I guess, no, the employees will not be, well, if you choose to do a general, yes, but the way we've structured the ratio of available reservations to standby ridership, we do not foresee a big problem accommodating regular employee ridership that we're experiencing now.
On the main.
Because remember, you cannot book out, but on the main ferry. We are not going to have a scenario where the passenger ferry is going to be really ever fully booked. I don't see that happening anytime in the near future at all. We're always going to have the ability to reserve spaces for, and I'll tell you, the reason we even set up this, and it was the entering argument, because we knew that the employees had to get back and forth. And so the space ratio that we've set up really was focused on making sure we have enough room for the employees and the other standby passengers. And then we kind of hit a threshold for where we would make publicly available reservations.
Well, I guess the times that would be most important for employees to have reservations would be the peak times, like Saturday afternoon at 4:30 or 5:30 when the line is out the door.
Like that's like it is today, right?
Right, exactly. Okay, all right, that was my question. Thank you.
But yeah, and again, I just want to go back. We are going to continue to analyze traffic flows by ticket class and what we're experiencing on the ferries. And we can go into the system and say, okay, 100 wasn't the right number. Maybe it's 90, maybe it's 110. We can go into that system once we've gathered some data and we understand what the demand is going to be for the reservations, to go in and kind of right size it to minimize disruption. And I know I've seen employees get bumped on boats a lot too, simply because there's 300 day trippers coming off the island at 4:30 in the afternoon. Those are things that are probably still going to happen to a certain extent, but we're hoping that the incidence of that, when the day tripper gets online and makes a reservation, they realize that it's already packed at 4 o'clock, where you may not have had 50 spots available for your personnel. Now there's going to be 50 spots available because those folks are going to have to pick a different time to come back.
Thank you.
So there's a way to look at that solution set as well.
And the solution set around that is we don't have, because the way the island works, there's no construction traffic allowed on the island on the weekends. So what we're balanced there is really the turnover crews and then the island businesses, where during the week, it's in the customers or the renters coming on and off the island on Saturdays and weekends. Where during the week, we have the contractor and the employee systems that we're trying to manage in terms of the traffic. And again, right now, the contractor traffic is really, really high. So here's a little data for you. So for the first quarter of this year, ferry ridership's up 10% compared to last year. But what I'll tell you is that general fare, bulk 40, bulk 80, those are all down 12, 13%. And that tracks what's going on with the rental companies right now. Vacation rentals are off somewhere between 10 and 20%, not just here, but across the board. But contractor, the guys pounding the nails and building the construction boom, their ridership's up like, 23%, which is offsetting the down ride in that. So trying to manage those swings and that traffic within the schedules that were allowed within the tariff with the Utilities Commission, that we're hoping, and we are confident that the electronic ticketing system will help us get that data and work through that.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is, right now, we have no valves. We have no way to control flow one way or the other. The system gives us some ability to turn some valves in certain directions to make the experience and the operation smoother and more efficient.
Hey, Claude Pope, 8 Maritime Way, 21 Laughing Goal, 6 Maritime Way. First of all, I think this is a great system. I think it's been a long time coming. I think it's the transition. The devil's going to be in the details. Some of the stuff we're not going to know for a week or two, or a month or two, or even a year or two. But I'm excited to see the system. And for us, the biggest issue for us is how do we transition the whole employee process and everything like that. The biggest issue I see, and this is more of a philosophical issue than a process issue, is that employees on the island are deemed to be last. You put everybody else on the boat first, and then the employee is then allowed to board, standby, whatever you want to call it. That's been the history. Whereas it seems to me that it should be exactly the opposite. Without any staff on the island, there's nobody to make a biscuit. There's nobody to mow a grass. screen. There's nobody to take care of anybody. That if you've got the masses coming over, but there's no employees here, there's nobody to serve them. And further, if it's as hard as it is now to hire people, we just lost a person this week, showed up one day, they were going home. It was a 20-minute delay. That person never came back. And that's just on a delay, not even a bump. It's hard enough to find people now. I would suggest that we give strong consideration to reversing that, where the employees, the critical components of this island, the public safety people, the people that pick up the garbage, the people that make the biscuits and mow the grass, they, in my opinion, should be given first priority. Because once they're here, everybody else can then get served. If you do it the other way around, everybody shows up and there's nobody to serve them. Obviously, there's some history on there where, you know, things seem to work out. So the second question I've got is when there is no contractor ferry and you're only riding passenger ferries, you know, at night, weekends, and that kind of thing, that's where that employee then, the way I understand it, has to go standby. And so it's really back to the first issue. That's something I would love to have a deeper discussion on. How can we fix that? Is it fixable? And can we make that part of the offering to where it's easier now to hire people? It's hard enough as it is, but if we can fix that piece of it, I think every employer on the island would have an easier time trying to recruit, hire, train, and retain staff that has to come in here and work every day. So,
We can make that, that's great. And these are issues that Claude and I have talked about in the past, and that, you know, he inherited when we sold him the market. A couple of things. The ferry and the tram are a regulated utility. I would suggest if the Mitchell family could have created a resident ticket or a property owner ticket that gave them priority, it would have been done 35 years ago. The Utilities Commission regulates rates and that tariff. The way we'll address this is at the next rate case. Because we can't give preference. The Utilities Commission, they care about the general consuming public. Their benchmark, they start with the day tripper. It's all about the general consuming public to access a public beach. That makes it really hard. That's why we tried for years where we can be subjective and allow some subjectivity into the system to accommodate residents and property owners. We've done that. Now, what's happened in the last 3 to 5 years and what's happened recently is with the situation where we're battling with the sub 21 and the sub 22 cases before the Utilities Commission, is it's all about on-time performance. All about on-time performance with a 2-minute swing. That's going to take away some of our subjectivity, which is going to put more pressure on what Claude just talked about. But those issues are fundamental for how y'all want to run the island. I would also suggest too, the way it works is you've got roughly 300 full-time residents that vote. We've got 2,000 property owners. The village is the biggest intervener. They're looking out for what they believe are the best interests for the village of Bald Head Island, or should be. That is a fundamental issue on how we need to do that. And I totally agree. Again, when we owned all the businesses, our employees, per the tariff, per the rules for the Utilities Commission, they stood aside. You're not getting in front of a property owner. You're not getting in front of a customer. You're not getting in front of they had to stand aside. That was a long time ago. In 2010, I think we transported 230,000 passengers. We transported 380,000 round trips last year. So those are really good things. This is not going to solve it. The good news, Claude, is I am confident that we will have raw bulk data that can help guide how we address the tariff with the Utilities Commission next time.
Thank you.
And Mr. Pope, I just want to reiterate that the ideas you're putting forward were exactly what we were thinking about first, about how we were going to manage this, making sure that we left enough space, because the vast majority of our standby riders will be the employees. And that's what we hope to have, is that now they're not competing with the entire population. They're really only competing with a smaller population. So we have higher probability that they'll be able to move more predictably, just like folks that do make reservations. So your concerns were at the front of our mind and how we thought about what that ratio has to be. So we're not in disagreement. It's just a matter of functionality between what the tariff is able to do and our ability to incentivize reservations that will ultimately benefit everyone, including the employee riders.
Right. Thank you very much.
Hi there, I'm Sally Shuping Russell. I am at 4 Ballantrae Court. Although I'm not a resident property owner, but I have been a property owner for 23 years. So I've seen a lot of comings and goings. I just have 3 questions. First of all, I agree with Claude. This is a much improved, so thank you guys for working on it so hard. I guess as a non-resident property owner who likes to kind of decide on Wednesday, I'm coming down for the weekend, I'm a little bit concerned that, especially in the summer months, that the realtors, et cetera, will basically buy up the reservation tickets. And so it'll be harder for me to do that. So how do we know that, let's say in the summer, that the realtors aren't going to be able to buy up 100 tickets per boat at, the 10 o'clock and the 4 o'clock or whatever? And I mean, can they buy those in that much of extended forward time period? Do you see what I'm saying?
I think the short answer is we're not going to have a way to determine who's buying the tickets. I mean, we'll know that someone bought, an entire boat worth of 100 reservations. There's no way to avoid that, but I don't think we'll have the ability to say, rental company, you're paying the same money as everyone else. You happen to get online and make the reservation before other people did, and therefore we're still going to tell you can't have those reservations. I don't think we're going to be in a position to be able to do that.
The Utilities Commission would not allow us to do that.
Okay, great. The second question I have is, so if you had, you get,
If I can interrupt one
Sure.
second. But the good news is they can't do that for 150 rides on one boat. There will always be 50 available for other folks that didn't get into that boat. So yes, it is something that may happen that may not be as advantageous to a lot of folks, but we've kind of built in a buffer that says they can't take an entire boat, which would be more problematic for you, probably just coming at the spur of the moment than otherwise would happen.
okay, thanks. And another question is, a lot of times you get traffic on the way down and you miss your reservation. So if I have a reservation for, say, the 3 o'clock boat and I can't get here until the 4 o'clock boat, I'm saying I'd have to go on standby. But would I get any kind of priority within standby, having had a reservation for the prior boat?
We won't be able to do that. I think it would cause a lot of turmoil within us trying to stick on schedule and coordinate the reservations and check them in. I think if you miss your appointment, kind of like at the airport, you kind of scramble to see what plane you can get on. I think we're going to have to run it in that so that you can get in line for the next available boat, and we'll get you on as soon as we possibly can.
And part of that is your situation is very specific. That makes sense. But if you take that one step further, you could recognize how someone or a large organization could really game the system and effectively get their 100 and then effectively get the next 50 for the next boat. And so part of that is within the constructs of the Utilities Commission tariffs and the rates that we have, to not allow somebody to game the system that takes advantage of your situation.
Okay, so we just hope that things around Raleigh are good and improved with the Beltline that's going around.
And then, ma'am, the other option again is if you know that you miss your time,
You can try to go
you
ahead.
can go in line and try to change. As long as there's a reservation spot available on the next boat, you can take that reservation spot and then you board with the rest of the folks that have a reservation for that time.
Okay. Okay, so the last question, and this is really just a clarification. So we've been buying bulk 40 tickets for a long time. And so if I understand you correctly, that I would basically get a coupon code for my bulk 40s, and let's say I have 20 tickets left on them. Then that same queue, so every time I call to make a reservation, I give them that coupon, same coupon code. And that just basically, I should just throw away 2 tickets essentially if I want to use the paper tickets. Is that the way that would work, or do I have to get a separate coupon every time we try to vote?
No, well, what we would ask you to do, if you have an existing number of paper tickets, next time you come down, we'll ask you to come to the window with your remaining tickets,
Turn them in.
turn them in, and then we'll reissue a coupon code for the number of rides you have remaining. And then when you renew your bulk 40, you can do that in line from Raleigh. And all you got to do is buy that bulk 40. They'll issue you a coupon code. And then whenever you want to make a trip, you just book your trip whenever you arrive.
And I can pass that code on to,
Yeah, you can share that with whomever, and it's good for 80 rides, and that's it.
okay, thank you guys very much.
Great.
Sandy Bristol, 704 Federal. I'm one of the guys who bought the bulk 80. So I was really pleasantly surprised by your presentation. And it sounded good until you said that I can't make a reservation. Because to me, I gave you my money up front. And if you look back on my history, if you could track it, you would see that I bought an awful lot of these over the years. So I gave you my money up front, $1,500. And now you're saying that I have no way to reserve on the ferry, that I have to take my chances and stand by. And to me, it seems like what you did was engineer these tickets out of the system over time. That's how I look at it. So maybe I misunderstood what you said, but to me, I'm not happy because now I'm punished for having planned ahead.
Mr. Bristol, I understand, and trust me, we had a conversation. We tried to make it so that we could get that ticket class to work with reservations. So what we're looking at is an alternative operational change that would allow annual pass holders and bulk 80 holders to board with reservations with the reservation line. Now, the only and remember, we're not allowing each boat to be maxed out, right? So there will always be spaces available on every boat. And if you board with the reservation folks, then it's just like you had a reservation.
Well, because here's my scenario. Sunday morning, I wake up, I say, I want to go to church. I used to take the 9:30 boat, but because of the dredge and other issues with timing, baggage or whatever, could never make that. So I shifted. I said, okay, I'm going to go on 8:30. I have to know in some way, shape or form that I can get on that 8:30 boat. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go on a 7:30 boat if there is one. That's what happens to me. So what you're saying is you're developing a way to solve that problem, or you're not?
Yes. So, yeah, essentially, there will only be 100 reservations available for every boat.
I get that.
Okay. If we allow annual pass holders and bulk 80s, which is a very, very small population, to board with the reservations, then your problem is solved.
Okay.
And then everyone else in standby comes on board.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And just for folks' awareness, those that have bulk 80s and annual passes, on average are less than 10 riders a day. So we're not talking
That's per
about.
day, not per trip.
Yeah, we're not talking about a huge population that will skew the data if we allow you to board with the reservations. You're not going to knock a bunch of people out from the standby ride.
Thank you.
Hi, Cherie Murphy, 7 Spike Rush. So I'm in agreement with this last gentleman. My husband and I are also 80 ticket card holders. We're traveling from Virginia. So I have concerns about being able to get on the ferry when we need to get on the ferry. And it sounds as if you're going to try to work that out. I hope you can, because that's a significant issue for us. So if you have bulk 40 or bulk 80, and if you are able to implement it so that that's loaded for us, every time you use one, will the system tell us how many we have remaining?
Well, that is something we are seeking to try to resolve.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, that seems like a pretty
we
simple
think-
thing to ask.
Yes, and it's something that we've asked the vendor to try to do. It is not a function that any other of the systems are doing, and so it's kind of they have to go in and write new code for it. And we have not been able to figure out how that might work for particularly those bulk tickets yet. My understanding is it may work and they may have figured it out, but until we actually get the system up and running, and people are using the tickets, then we'll be able to do it. I mean, I think it would be a great capability, but I can't guarantee that it's going to be available. You may have to track your own usage.
Okay. Okay. Also, is this a simple, maybe a silly complaint about the current system, and I'm hoping it's resolved in the new system. But when you go in to get a tram reservation, it doesn't save your address of your home or your email address. I mean, you end up typing it all in every time you go online. It seems like that would be a simple thing for the system to do for you. I just find that frustrating. And the name and address, of course, as well with that. Is that something that you're looking at improving while you're moving to this new system?
So what we've been talking about doing is you may be able to set up your own account that has your payment system, kind of like your Amazon account. You just log in and it'll have your payment system. It may have your previous orders in there, and then, but even the entry system that we put into the system now with just the drop downs, it's much simpler. You don't have to type everything out. Really, we're hoping to streamline a lot of that. And this is one of those things that we're going to continue to work on to see how we can streamline the input process for customers. My idea and what I would like to pursue is if you choose to make that account, then all your data is stored in your account and you're able to just kind of order again, kind of with Pizza Hut, you know?
But that's part of the PCI compliance. The reason why we can't do that today is that we have that data. We technically could be adverse. We know when you're coming. We know where you're going. We know who you are. And that is totally in violation of all PCI compliance with credit cards, with data, with all of that stuff.
I don't
So-
mind putting my credit card in once in
But
a
in
while.
terms of all of that, that's why it's set up the way it is today.
The address.
But like we said before, all of the addresses, all the homes are going to be loaded. So you just go right to the drop-down menu, or you start to do, like Mr. Bristol, you do FE, it's going to just go right to Federal Road, right? So you'll be able to work with the drop-down menu. But the reason why the data is not stored today, and the reason why if we can do what Bayonne talked about and make it part of the future, there will be a place where if you create your own account, you are opting in to leave that data there. It's not a choice where we have said, we're gonna just, AI, and use artificial intelligence, for the lack of a better word, to track that. So that's the key, is you have to be able to opt in, just like you do for your Amazon account. You have to opt in.
Right, I understand that. So with the, initially it sounded as if, like this other gentleman said, that you were kind of discounting those 80 ticket card holders. But are you telling me now that you're trying to create a system so that we would be able to get on with that
System
the
right now
100
is
tickets?
there are so few bulk 80 ticket users and holders, and so few annual passes, less than 10 trips a day combined for both of those units. If we have a reservation system that books for 100, and we say now boarding, reservations, annual passes, and bulk 80s, there aren't 50 bulk 80
Okay.
tickets out there. There aren't 50 combined bulk 80 annual pass holders out
Well,
there.
that sounds terrific. That's just not what I heard earlier in your presentation. That's what I'm hearing now. That sounds terrific. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
That's
what I
great.
mentioned was the complexity of the way those particular ticket classes are. We couldn't set it up for you to go online and make reservations, but then I mentioned we were
Okay.
looking at operational changes to be able to make sure you can get on board with high confidence. We would have to have something very, very significant, a special event, a hurricane or something else that would maybe
Okay, I mean,
impede
if
your
you can do
ability.
that, that sounds terrific. That'd certainly solve our.
So the other thing too, in terms of the history of the tariffs and the tickets, the bulk 40 and the bulk 80s back in 2010 were a tariff that were created to basically provide a discount for the heavy users. Again, really at the expense of the general consuming public. That was the trade-off that the Utilities Commission made. It was all about price and tariff. So the good news, I think, about what Mr. Pope brought up is I would suggest that we probably have too many ticket classes and too many different pricing schedules, that maybe it might make sense that we kind of blend some of those together and probably reduce the overall fare box. So I would tell you right now, fare box is if you take all of our tickets and all of our sales, so we have a $23 general ticket, right? That gives you the general ticket and gives you tram ride. And then we have, employees, contractor special tickets that are $14, $16. Our average annual fare box right now, if you take it all together, is $17.33. And that number has been pretty consistent, excluding COVID and excluding Hurricane Florence. So you can see for the employee ticket club, for another $1 balanced somewhere from in the system, we could probably make that work if we got general consensus with everybody that makes sense on how we do that. So we're not miles away on any tariff except the general $23 ticket that a lot of the day trippers and the rental guests are using. Everybody else is within $1 up or down of the average fare box anyway. And frankly, the Utilities Commission really is, they're concerned about not taking advantage of the general public, but that fare box is what's key. If we can stay within $1 on either side of that fare box on an annual basis, the stuff that we've talked about for years should happen outside any other externality.
Excuse me. Mac McCarthy, 7 Sea Lavender Court, non-resident property owner, bulk 40 ticket class. Thank you for your work. Thanks for the presentation. It's great to be able to actually see and talk with you. Excuse me. Number one, how do we get in touch with you? Other than stalking you online, can we put a number up here, or how you prefer?
You can call the main numbers at Bald Head Island.
Just a regular fare number, the
Very number, you track us down. Bione's number and our number are all been given to Carrie and all of the Bald Head Island Association websites. It's all there. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you plan to keep the video cameras available so that we'll know when the ferry is late or not late? it's helpful to look
Even
at
better.
either the
Yeah.
map or the video.
Even better.
So the new system, right now, the system we use to track the ferries, video cameras would still be available. The system we use now that like you see in the display, it's web-based. It goes through this connection and URLs and Twidget kind of things that I don't know all the bits and pieces for. What we've done with the new system and particularly with the app is the ability, we've put actual iPads that are connected and dedicated to this new system on the boats. Integrated within those iPads is the ability to send a real-time signal through the system to the app that allows you even a better tracking. Now, we're still setting it up and testing, and we've got to make sure that we've got Wi-Fi and or cell connectivity to make sure it works properly, but it should be, and the experience has been that it is more accurate than what we're doing now. So hopefully you'll have a better idea. There'll be a little thing on the map that says, oh, yeah, it's 1:15 and they're not quite to the island yet. The 1:30 is probably going to be a little bit late coming off, something like that. The other thing is once the system is live and you go into the schedule, it'll tell you, we'll be able to put in there if it's late, it'll tell you when the next run is expected and how many minutes to the next run and all that kind of stuff. But again, we won't know really how well that system integrates with our operation until we actually get it in place and get it running. But based on what we've seen so far, it should be, you'll have more information. And again, like I noted in the presentation, if we have some way to get a hold of you, whether it's email or you purchase a ticket and you've had it sent to your phone via phone number, you will get those alert texts for when something significant has happened and there's a significant delay. And that'll be pushed to you instead of just wondering and having to go to our website and see if we've managed to be able to put anything up.
Right, so that plays into part of my next question in that we've addressed if you're late for the ferry and you're standby for the next ferry, suppose you're early or the ferry is delayed because you've seen it's late leaving the island and you're going to arrive at Deep Point, blah, blah, blah. And you can catch the earlier ferry. Are you in the standby line there? And what happens to your existing ticket for the 4 o'clock when you jump on the 3:15?
If you're early and you choose to get on an earlier ferry, you'll have to get on with the standby group. When they scan your ticket, it'll say, oh, this is for the next run. But if we have room, we say override. And then it shows that your ticket for the next run was used.
Or you can cancel your 4 o'clock and get on and do a reservation for the 3 o'clock if there's reservations available.
Yeah, we are asking that folks try to make a reservation 3 hours in advance of your predicted ride. For folks, that may not be a problem, but you could get on, we do ask folks to be in line, ready to board 15 minutes prior to the scheduled departure. And I know we end up late and stuff like that, but you can really up to, I think we're going to cut off changing reservations to that 15-minute point. But even up to that point, if you find that you want to take a ride and it's no more than 15 minutes before the next schedule, and you already have a reservation, you can go in on your app and you can shift that reservation to the next run.
Thank you. And I was unclear on the website. It appeared that the ferry ride and the tram reservation were distinct as opposed to being conjoined now with my bulk 40 ticket. They appeared to be different. Is that a different rate change or did I misinterpret what I saw on the screen?
No, when you choose your ticket class, or for you, if you're riding as a bulk 40 and you're using your coupon code to make your reservation, one of the additional services, like extra baggage, et cetera, one of them in that menu will be tram reservation. When you click that, it'll then take you to the information where you input where you want to go. And that'll be connected to your reservation time. Now, that is one thing that should automatically adjust when you shift to reservation, it'll automatically change your tram ride time as well.
Okay. As it sounds like a lot of boxes to check driving down the
Not
road.
really.
It
Once you
does.
get into it, I mean, I've gone into our system and purchased several tickets just to get used to it. I don't think it took me more than a minute to process an entire reservation.
And again, I appreciate the work y'all have done leading up to this. The final question is the exchange and buying of tickets. You listed Deep Point. Can you also do it on the island?
No, for the exchange, you'll need to do that the first time because then we're going to transition to the QR code. If you're exchanging paper tickets, that needs to happen at the Deep Point terminal.
And purchase of bulk 40s can either be online or at Deep Point
Correct.
and not on the island.
Not on the island.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And sir, the main reason for that is because we will be retaining the ability to print the 40 tickets at the window at Deep Point. We will not have that same ability on the island. It requires a separate system to be able to print the paper tickets still.
Hi, I'm Lois Cassidy. I live at 19 Dogwood Trail. So far, you've talked about apps and QR codes. What about people who have a flip phone, not a smartphone, and have a home computer with no printer? How are they supposed to be accommodated?
You can walk up to the window and purchase your ticket.
Yes, but I've got a bulk 40 ticket already. So what do I do now?
You can still go up to the window and they will be able to transition they'll be able to print you out a new ticket. If you want to go up and you want to make a ride, you go up and they can exchange your paper tickets for new ones with QR code.
Okay, so the ticket has the QR code on it now. If you get bulk, so if I buy bulk 40s online and use the coupon code, then I'm not going to get a bulk ticket with a QR code.
If you choose to go online with the bulk 40, you're going to have some way to receive and present a QR code. Either
So
through
there's no
email.
information for that then.
No, and then if you want to stick with paper tickets, like I said, you can go to the Deep Point terminal and they'll be able to print them out just like you had. You'll have your 40 tickets. You just won't be able to make an online reservation for the ferry.
So you have to go standby all the time then.
Yes,
Okay.
if you choose to go paper, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin Arata, 112 Stede Bonnet. As Claude said, I think this is going to be a great system. It's just going to take some growing pains to get through it, and there's a lot of challenges that come with it, but we do appreciate the work you've gone through. My first question is a personal one. So I'm one of those very few people that bought an annual pass. And although I've heard a few different things here, it'd be cool if I could get a refund and go buy a bulk 80 or a bulk 40, because I think in the short term, next 6 months until my pass expires, it'll be easier to make sure that I've got reservations. Living here full time, it's kind of a challenge, as a lot of people have been indicated, to make reservations and plan. And the ability to put your number or a QR code in there would be a helpful thing.
So with the operational rule that we're going to put in place, you would be treated just like a bulk 80. So you would be reservations and bulk 80 and annual pass holders would board first.
That's going to work in the next couple of weeks.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We'll have that in place when we go live.
And this is not,
And surely, and the accounting folks would kill me, but there's so few bulk 80s and so few annual passes.
Right.
We'll refund and we'll figure out how to prorate and get that done.
Yeah, no,
It may be a real manual mess to do it, and I'm on camera and I'm gonna my phone's gonna be blowing up before I finish. But there's so few. And it's primarily residents like yourself. We will accommodate what we need to do to accommodate that, because it's like I said, it's less than 10 rides a day.
it is, and it's understandable. And it's really that challenge of how do we all of us work through this over the next 6 months until there's a system that's been established and it works. And so I appreciate that.
And there may be some way down the line, once we mature with the system and once the system matures with us, that we can find a solution to be able to give you access to the online reservation system. But the stopgap will be to allow you to board with reservations. And in that capacity, you will always be able to get on board.
Next question, kind of related to this, more NCUC, but I've always wanted to ask you this anyway. So when you do the bulk 80 or the annual pass, you're not entitled to use the tram, which is fine because most of us that live here don't need that. We're going off to the day to get stuff and come back. But you're not allowed to check bags. And so I got a big 2-wheel cart that's about half as big as I am, and I bring it all back when I'm taking stuff back and forth. But in the future, how will that be affected for those that want to bring stuff? Because again, that's the people that do that are mostly property owners. And hopefully we turn away and look the other way when you want to bring stuff back, but that might not happen 6 months from now. Is that going to be treated the same way where we can hopefully work that out for residents?
Continue to be on the honor system for baggage, notwithstanding, we know that residents and property owners are not the problem with baggage.
Right.
I know that there was a discussion, about, well, can we do something on Tuesdays for just property owners and residents to bring more than expect? Well, the commission would, the utilities commission would say that would be a violation. So where we are not going to handcuff our riders on baggage unless it's grossly obvious. And I have been here 12 years now, and I have not seen a property owner or a resident be abusing the system.
Right. And I've never had a problem with
So
it.
where we
It's
are,
always worked out
it's going to
well.
be the honor system. That's how we've done it. We had the honor system we put in place last year, and we probably created 5 to 10% capacity, excess capacity, just from people doing the honor system and not making the guys at Deep Point get hammered. And that's where it is. We really need, if it comes over, it's going back, right? So it's really, it's been an issue for some of the rental guests primarily, and then we ran into the contractors abusing the system. So I would suggest, Kevin, like always, if you know my email and you've got my phone number, you just reach out and we'll take care of it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a rule follower, so I try and do the right thing, right? But there's the time when you can't. Another question is, you mentioned the 50-person buffer, and I'd heard rumor a couple of weeks ago that it was a smaller number. 50, I think, sounds quite reasonable. Is that something you're going to watch, that you can shift accordingly?
Yeah, absolutely. We touched on this earlier. The data that we're basing the decision on is a data that was populated without the option to make a reservation. So, I've done some interpolation, some kind of not really deep regressive type of analysis, because the data set may not carry forward as it's been populated. But I think by looking at the different numbers, I think landing on the 100 reservations incentivizes the ability to take advantage of that. But the 50 in stand for every single ride, that's not just once in the day, that's every single boat will have 50 spaces available for folks that want to walk on, employees and such. I think that will give us a pretty good transition number.
Okay.
And then we'll continue to look at it. And if we find that the right number is 75 and 75, we can adjust that. But I want to make sure that we don't make too early a decision based on data that is only associated, but doesn't capture the reality of additional options that we're making available.
Right, and that sounds reasonable. So related to that, you mentioned you're going to have somebody in the corral area, at least during peak times. What I envision, because we saw this during COVID, and many of you probably saw the fist fights and the different fights that happen right to get online, is we've lumped a lot of people into, well, they'll go into standby. And so you're going to have 100 people there waiting in with reservations and 50 that are suddenly classed into various levels that are left to fend for themselves. And so I just go back to those scary COVID days when it was 25 at a time and we're waiting to get off. And now you got 50 people going, no, I'm ahead of you, man. I'm ahead of you. And so I just ask that you be cognizant of that, not just for the peak periods, but for those off periods where you don't know. Because if there's not a guy or a gal there in uniform or a policeman there, which they had to have, as you're well aware, that's potential for a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the good news is those periods where the system is extraordinarily stressed they will exist, but hopefully they're few and far between. And when that stress transitions into people's reactions and behaviors, we will react accordingly.
And so is it the guy that scans that ticket at the gate that will then deconflict those for the most part?
Or for the most part, Again, yeah, you saw some during COVID. I think there were special circumstances and a bunch of societal and other things that were influencing it. I have heard complaints of some folks bullying themselves in the front of the line, but I haven't had a lot of like physical conflicts and reports of yelling and screaming. It still happens every once in a while, but
If stand out there long enough, it does.
yeah, but it tends to be driven by another factor rather than the fact that we're only allowing 25 people on the boat. And I think that was one of the big variables that was driving that kind of behavior during COVID, when everyone was kind of scratching their head and wondering what was going on.
That was part of Bione's hiring. He's much bigger than I am.
Good idea.
You just send Bione down there to take care of it.
And that would probably work. So back to the no frills thing, you mentioned this a few times, and I think Sandy brought it up. So if people get no frills and you go up, or when Mark was bringing it up before, if you go up and get a no frills, you've got to, that's why I bought the annual pass. I didn't like coming up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and go, hey, I'm going off today. Then I would go back home. Then we come back up at 12 o'clock to go off the ferry. So if you get a no frills, you've got to come up once and buy the ticket and then make the reservation and then go back home. Because if you don't, you've bought the no frills and you're automatically relegated to standby unless there happened to be a room, right?
No frills is a standby ticket. There's
Standby
no
period,
reservation.
No
available for
reservation.
that.
Okay. And then final question from an operational side is, so for those who are here forever or for a week or two and their kids or guests come to visit, they get a day pass to come out. It's okay if we do this, but they're going to sign up and they're going to get a tram reservation that they don't need. So then you've got trams driving by to stop at houses to pick people up that might not be there.
You
Is
do
that-
not have to associate a tram ride with your ferry reservation.
Okay, I missed that then.
When you get to the page, it says add-ons essentially.
So you can
I
leave that.
forgot what we ended up naming it. If you don't click on the part that says I want a tram ride, it doesn't.
Okay,
It just
gotcha.
moves you forward to the ticket purchase.
That's good. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
23 typed up questions. For those who are coming online, we've got 5 people who'd like to raise their hands. Where in the mix would you like to?
I think why don't we finish the folks that are live? I think we finish the live audience first, and then we can move to the ones online.
Hi, I'm Barbara Adams Miller. Live here full-time at 16 Bay Tree Trail. I also have some questions. Thank you for all the great information for us full-time residents. And I know we're all gonna have some transitions, me learning how to use QR codes. I have a question though, for people that guests, I also property manage. So I have a whole bunch of people that have already made tram reservations for the summer. Do they now have to go and buy a ticket, and do they lose the tram reservation that they've already made? If they made a tram reservation for say 4 o'clock, they can't get on that boat, they've got to now buy a ticket and they'll get a new tram reservation?
All of the existing tram reservations will be imported. The expectation is that they will purchase the ticket associated with the time that they originally made the booking. If they have to change it and there's room available, they can do that. If they need to make a phone call to the ticket booth, and the ticket booth has the ability to kind of adjust based on what their ride is going to be. That's, at least at this initial transition period, that's one of those things that's going to require a little bit of extra work. It's not going to be, we're trying to make it as seamless as we can, but there are going to be scenarios where it's not going to be seamless.
But anybody that's any pre-existing tram reservation, let's just say that day one, we're gonna go live and flip the switch. Anything that was booked pre-day one, we will automatically import into the system for that tram reservation. So they're not gonna have to, you have to contact your customers to go and say, oh, now you gotta go online and rebook your tram reservation. No, if they booked it already, it's gonna be in the system.
They have to buy a ticket.
Right
for
now,
that
they would have to buy a
particular-
ticket on
right.
the current system
Right,
today
okay.
anyway. So the good news on that is if they go and buy a ticket and they miss that boat, just like they would today, then the tram reservation will follow their new ticket purchase.
Okay, and then just one other question, since we're potentially doing this 12 days from now, do you have all of this information online, or will it be online quickly so that people, we need to communicate this to a whole bunch of people?
Remember, you can do it exactly the way you're doing. Paper tickets, basically, for the all intents and purposes, everything is a standby ticket right now. It's first come, first served. General fare, $23 tickets, words first. That's the way it's set up right now, first come, first served basis based on your tariff that you bought. So people can rush to be the first one to use a system, or they can continue to use the paper system.
Okay, so I guess that, and that's fine. I get that now. Thank you for that clarity. Is there going to be a lot of this posted on the website soon so that people will have the ability to understand it?
Not only that, but you just go to the website and you go into the system and it will walk you right through, just like you go and load your app, it will walk you right through what you want to do. It's going to walk and talk just like you book a plane ticket, a bus ticket, or a train ticket.
So just to add a little information to that, we have this presentation we put together was for this audience, and so it wasn't overly burdensome to go through 30 slides. We're going to finalize a set of slides that has even more detail on how to walk through the system, and we will make that available for viewing on the website.
That'll be helpful.
And then it's got more screenshots, it's got explanations on how things work, and folks will be able to walk themselves through it, get familiar with it even before they log in to buy a ticket.
And so we'll also share all of that with the association. So you'll have the association that can, the websites and the how-tos, as well as just going to Bald Island Transportation or ballislandferry.com. You'll have it all there as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Betty Robinson. I live at 11 C Holly Court. Thank you for this presentation. Something that seems to have been overlooked in some of the discussion is a thank you to the staff, the baggage handlers, the crews on the boats. They are the ones that help move us through and to keep things efficient. I just wanted to say how much we appreciate them. I'm the lady who wrote the email to you with questions and emphasized fair access. I don't believe, and I'm sorry that Claude has already left. I do not believe that there's any class of people on this island that deserve priority over anybody else. Employees, renters, owners, we all need and have reasons to go back and forth, and we need efficient services. So I do believe you have an option in terms of the fare classes, in terms of transport and whether you can do baggage and things like that. But it has nothing to do with you as an individual and your reason to be here. And I just wanted to state that. The second thing I wanted to say is, I know we've talked about not gaming the system. It does not feel that way if, in fact, entities can do bulk purchasing well in advance with the intent to redistribute those tickets. And that's exactly the situation we have with the trams right now. You can go all the way through the summer and you will look at departure times and arrival times, and they are totally blocked out. So a resident has no option to call and get a tram during those times. Allowing any entity to do bulk purchasing without the intent to use those tickets personally for them, their family, their guests, I think is in fact hedging their bets, gaming the system, and it's unfair to residents who are not planning a vacation, so they can't make that plan in advance, but they've got something that's going on, death in the family, a family celebration that all of a sudden pops up in August, and you need to leave the island at the time that everything has been booked. So I realize you're not magicians and you can't solve all of that, but I would really question whether or not that is a fair practice according to whatever the regulatory bodies
I
are.
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
The issue is that we've got this regulatory regime oversight, that it's first come, first served. And that's frankly, what you brought up is why we are not going to go full reservation system for the contractor employee boat, because what will end up happening is you'll have one giant entity buy the entire 730 boat out for the entire system for the whole season.
But what you do have now is it's first come, first serve. You may not get a tram reservation, but you can get on and off the island by going there and standing in line. That will not be the case if you allow entities to do bulk purchasing well in advance throughout the entire summer. It's different.
So ma'am, I think part of the dynamic that will be influenced by this system that you're experiencing now, where folks will go in and book a bunch of tram reservations because that's all they can do right now. Well, they don't have to have a ticket associated with that reservation. Now they have to actually put the money forward, and yes, they could do a bulk purchase, but that's a significant investment for a company to front load down the line without certainty, right? So we're hoping that there is some normalization in how the tram reservation is connected to a purchase ticket. Because now you don't have to even have a ticket to call in and make a tram reservation.
Purchase something that, right now, if you stand in line early enough, you'll get on. If people are allowed to reserve well in advance, bulk situation, you don't have to be access.
True, and we also, and that's one of the other reasons why we have set aside that you can't book the entire boat or a series of boats.
Yeah, you can book 100.
You can, I mean, you can, and we may or may not have any control over that. That may be an issue we bring to the utility commission. If that comes to fruition, that becomes quite a problem. But remember, each time they do that, that's a significant investment. And I don't know what the cash flow capacity of some of the businesses is going to be to really be able to do that. Yeah.
It's fine, and you can make some determination based on that. This is really fair access.
The other thing, and only because recall every single business on the island I used to run. There are 2 businesses on the island that would have the cash flow and the reserves to be able to do what you're talking about, and we're one of them. And I could assure you that it wouldn't take long for someone to report that all the way to the Utilities Commission if we were doing that. Where the system is gamed now, we all know it's because we've got people riding the tram that came over here on their private boat. We've got people that, this whole thing with sea tow and towboats and, oh, we're taking, no, we want sea tow and towboats to do exactly what they've been doing always. But it's not fair for them to advertise for passenger ferry service, come and use our third-party private dock right in front of you all. They get to charge whatever they want. And oh, by the way, their passengers are throwing their luggage in our line and having one person ride with all the luggage. So this is going to slowly start to make people more accountable. So your concerns are very real. They're very real for me. We will immediately address those issues. And I am sure that on certain occasions, like for example, like right now, the way we do that is somebody has a big wedding. What are we going to do with weddings? We're going to do what we don't always. Basically, we price the cost of chartering one of the 4 ferries at basically the equivalent of about 22 riders. So if that's how they want to deal with that, that's how we're going to continue to deal with that the same way. But your issue is a huge issue for the system. And when we start, we'll have the data, we'll know who, we'll know the data, and that we can address that with the Utilities Commission. And we may take a rate case to deal with that, but we'll have the data to do that. The other part gets back to, and what you're talking about is what gets back to is we're running 30-minute boats on a 2-minute time delay for on-time performance. The industry standard, I mean, where did 2 minutes come from? It came from Colonel Fulton 30 years ago when he put the system together. Well, I'm a logistics colonel from Bragg, and 2 minutes is 2 minutes. I got to save lives right on the battlefield. Honest to goodness, that's exactly what, and Woody's probably watching this right now. That's exactly 2 minutes. Now, we got to give him supplies. 2 minutes is too long. My point being though is that The island's grown a lot. It's an island. If you think about how we've run transportation, we've run it like a bridge. It is an island. One thing that I know Claude Pope's aware of. So when I started, when I got on the board in 2006, I went up to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. I wanted to see less about transportation, more about how do they run their rental management. We had 130 homes. We had all the restaurants. How do they do that? Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. Remember, that's a 3-hour ferry ride. They bring 12,000 seasonal employees to those 2 islands every summer. 12,000. And they stay on the island because they can't take a 3-hour boat ride back and forth every day. I'm like, we can't do that. That's not how we're set up. But these issues of the buyouts and blackouts, it's not just with transportation, it's with a lot of things. So we hear you. Thank you. She left. You must remember Colonel Fulton.
I know the stories. I'm Sandra Gleish. I live at 438 South Bald Head, and I'm a full-time resident. And I think my question is maybe simpler. I'm just trying to visualize the actual boarding process. So assuming we've got full capacity, we've got 100 reservations and 50 on standby. And I did hear you mention more recently that you're going to ask people to be there 15 minutes before, boarding time. I think we all
That's the way
know.
the system, right now, you're supposed to be there 15 minutes.
Yeah,
before.
but I personally, I can admit that sometimes I'm there a half an hour before, and sometimes I'm like racing till the last minute and begging somebody to go park my cart for me while I drag my dog on. So it happens. But so are you going to be integrating the 50 stamps? So maybe you've got 100 reservations and 30 people are there when you start boarding. And after those 30 people on, are you then gonna let some of the standbys board while you're waiting to see if there are gonna be no shows or late shows? How physically is that actually gonna work?
Yeah, we've thought about that a lot. And I think if you're not in line with a reservation by the scheduled time, then yeah, maybe we're running a couple of minutes behind. But that's not the fault of everyone else that was there on time.
Yeah.
And so we will do that. We'll board those folks that are in the reservation line first. And then we'll start boarding standbys. If folks show up late or they will be in the standby line as well if they weren't there in time.
Okay. So
I mean, I think the reality is again, other than very specific max capacity times, everyone's going to get on the boat.
I think you're optimistic about that, but time will tell.
Well, the numbers prove it out for the most part. I mean, there's a couple of peak
There
times.
are always going to be clusters and they're not predictable.
Yeah.
I rode the ferry this week earlier, and on a weekday, nothing going on the island. People were lined up and jammed, like midday. And I'm just like, did I miss another holiday? I'm like, yeah, but this was after that. This was not the weekend wedding. And it's still.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that answers my.
We're going to do our best to make it fair that if you choose to make a reservation, then you
Yeah.
should be there in time to board on time. And if you're not, then you're giving up your seat just like on an airplane.
Okay, and just to confirm what I think I'm hearing, so I buy bulk 40 and I recently, bought a new 40 pack. I will not be able to make reservations
You will.
unless I switch over to the iPhone. I do know what that code is, but I don't know how to use it yet. So my grandchildren are coming this summer. Maybe they'll teach me.
You can do it online and print out your QR codes too. You don't have to use your.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Actually, you cannot print out your QR code in bulk. If you use the coupon, then you make your reservation, it'll give you a QR code and that you can either print out or you
So I
can.
have to switch my tickets to the coupons first. And do I switch all of them or could I switch some?
All of your remaining, you'll want to switch.
Hi, I'm Betsy. I'm Betsy Steven. I live at 25 Siegel Palm Trail, long time resident, good friend. And I really appreciate the presentation. I'd gotten some information earlier and as you know, there's been a lot of Facebook talk. So this, I think, will hopefully alleviate a lot of fears. You've talked a lot about history today, and I, of course, cleared back to Indigo. And at Indigo, and there were so many fewer people, as you have indicated, so less construction, it was logical to have, it was actually a 20-minute run. You had a 10-minute changeover. It is no longer a 20-minute run. And it's not even really, I mean, some days it's a 30-minute run, and then there's a lot of downtime. And maybe you can't do this because of NCUC, but this seems to be the perfect time to switch over to, say, a departure at 8 a.m., 9:15, 10:30, because there's so much anger about the late boats that this system seems to go with this perfectly. Can you change and give yourselves another 15 minutes, which would alleviate a lot of the stress?
So we have, thank you, Betsy, for that. Betsy has been on the block, both as a former council member and involved with the authority and others. So just some history. When we moved from Deep Point to Indigo, we added 5 to 7 minutes of travel time. That doesn't sound like a lot, but on a 30-minute trip, it's massive. The other thing that's occurred is tremendous amounts of more river traffic. We have no idea the river traffic that's been created with the widening of the port. That also, regardless if we're a passenger ferry and they're supposed to look out for us, they're bigger than we are. We really have to get out. The other issues we run into have been normally we were doing dredging work with the state port once every 3 years. It's been every year, and our folks have to slow down. They have to slow down for them by law. Have to do it. And what's you all in the room understand, if we fall behind 5 to 7 minutes in the morning, it just compounds itself throughout the day. And you've all been here where guess what? We just eliminate the 6 o'clock run because we've now lost the full hour because we've had to slow bell the whole time. To answer Betsy's question specifically, I would suggest that my predecessors, they kept it that way because there was enough slack in the system. And we were running 30-minute boats and everybody was kind of, the old timers on the island, they get it. That was part of the ambiance, right? Things have changed. We've got a lot more river traffic. We got a lot more people on the island. And back then it was easy. Oh, no problem. I can do the 30-minute boat. I can ride the contractor boat on the half hour on the island, or I can ride the main ferry in the hour. I can keep that in my head. That was before we had these. That's before we had technology, Betsy, where we could say, you know what? Do I envision that we have an 8:40 a.m. leaving from gate 1? Probably not like the airlines, but we have fully investigated moving to a 45-minute schedule. Okay. Now, we have had conversations with the Utilities Commission because technically that would be a conversation we would need to have with them. Why is that? Because if we go to a 45-minute schedule, as long as we're running the same number of boats, then it doesn't affect the tariff and the ticket class, but really we should coordinate that all in. But the answer is yes, Betsy, we have talked about running a 45-minute schedule without electronic ticketing. It's going to be very hard to manage that for you all. With this, that opens that aperture and that window up to be able to do that. We've already had significant preliminary conversations about that. The other issue with the 45-minute schedule is also how we manage the employees and the contractors back and forth during the day. Does that impact the hours of operation? Do we have to start to really remember that we're on an island, so maybe the shifts need to be a little different, right? But the answer is absolutely. Without this, we're gonna be hard pressed to do it. But I also want to make sure people understand that's the right thing to do for the system and the island. It's not to move the goalpost back so we have wonderful on-time performance because we've added an extra 10 minutes into Slack. That's not it. I think everybody recognizes that's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah, the reality, took me about 6 hours after I came on board to say, how in the world are we trying to run this? It's a speed, time, distance problem, not a level of effort or focus problem. And overcoming that requires us to have certain tools in place and the ability to continue to leverage some good efficiencies to try to get better at the on-time performance. And we're doing that across the board, whether it's looking at schedules, whether it's looking at re-engineering some of the boats to maybe pick up a few knots. Obviously, that's a huge capital expenditure, but we're looking across the board at every single component of our operation to figure out how we can be more efficient and give everyone more reliability in our schedule. It's not lost on us, trust me. Trust me.
Just so you guys know,
Okay.
here, and Henson from our staff, is how you guys work. And
Yep.
anyway.
So we have some online questions. I'm happy to help moderate that. What I'd like to do first is ask 2 questions at the top that have been typed in by one or several property owners just to kick this off. And then I will pivot to those who have been patiently raising their hands to ask. And then I have questions to read from email and also the Q&A. So the first 2 questions, what is the name of the app?
Oh, yeah, if you go into either, and again, I'm not sure if the Android app has been released, but if you go in,
Checked it hasn't. The Android one is.
the Android's not up yet. I was just on the phone with them yesterday. They were still working on it. But if you have an iPhone and then once it's up on the Google Play Store, you'll be able to just type in Bald Head Island Ferry and it'll pop up. The other thing we'll do is we'll provide a direct link to the app for download on the website once we go live with it.
Okay, thank you for that. And then a couple people also wanting to know what is the date that this will really go live? I know you mentioned about your testing, but I'll let you answer that one however you'd like.
We are currently scheduled to have the vendor out here on June 5th to begin the internal training session, and the normal progression for them with the dozens of other companies that they worked with is on the 3rd day, that Wednesday, I believe the June 7th is the projected go live date, but that may be pushed depending on how the testing and the training go the first 2 days, but that's our current schedule.
Okay, so now I'm going to pivot to the people who have been patiently holding up their hands for questions. And what I'll do for those of you online, I will now hit the allow to talk for Katie Guthrie first. And if you will unmute yourself and then please introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Hi there, this is Katie Guthrie. I own Island Retreat Spa and am a percentage owner of real estate on the island. First, I also want to say thank you for all of the dedication that you guys have put to making this a fluid system. I don't take that for granted. I do feel strongly that, there could be some adjustments made. I know that though this process will just take time for us to all adjust to. My biggest concern at this point, after kind of hearing everyone's question and answers, is what do we do on the return trip? We've talked a lot about pre-booking. We've talked a lot about standby. For me in particular, I often have, cancellations. My schedule for all of my staff changes. We are an appointment-based business. I believe we're one of the only appointment-based businesses on the island. And so our schedule changes from day to day. I am concerned because I have several all women on my team right now. Many of them are mothers, and we have lost staff, and we have had to drop shifts for many of my staff due to their inability to get home to their children, myself included. I'm a mom of two. So I'm looking for answers as to whether or not we can reserve a departure ferry, if we need to be purchasing one-way tickets to leave, and what is the departure process going to be like for either the general ticket holder or the employee ticket holder?
The boarding process on both sides will be the same. So folks with reservations off the island will board, and then all standby passengers will board. And
So
up
we
to
will
the.
reserve, we will reserve on the way back and on the way there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. I know that Tiffany McWhorter, or Tiffany Williams brought up the question of whether or not we would need to be purchasing general tickets for employees. I do think that the standby system, while good intentioned, may have some very early initial challenges. I do think that you're going to have not just business or not they buy employees. So my next question is, what options see as solutions to the standby? What do you think the first pivot by limited might be if there are not enough spaces for employees to get over on a consistent basis?
Right now, all employees are effectively boarding after general fare tickets. Right now, employee tickets don't have the ability to get a reservation at all. The employee ticket is to ride the employee contractor boat with the ability for the employee contractor to board last on the main ferry. So right now, it's all kind of a roll the dice.
Exactly. It causes an extreme amount of frustration for my staff. I mean, I have lost recently a manager, and I have several massage therapists who have dropped their schedules down. One of them, I mean, I have probably some of the best employee retention on the island. I have girls that have been with me for 7 or 8 years, and the ferry issues with getting bumped and having the inconsistent ability to get home in particular has really been a challenge. So I understand we're currently on a standby system, but what I'm asking is, without me having to go and guarantee them a spot, paying almost double the price for a general ticket, which I may end up having to do to guarantee my staff will get home. If we have 50 spots on standby and those are consistently filled and we are running on ferry delays with the new system, what do you foresee as a solution to that, if that is what happens?
That question, I would suggest, Katie, recall that I did run your business, so I know some of the challenges that are specific to yours. This system is not going to solve the issue that your father Claude brought up about how the employee tariff fits within the other tariffs. This is not going to solve that. What we'll need to do to answer your questions directly is incorporate that into the next rate case with the Utilities Commission and incorporate that with everything else that we got. The one of the things that we can do is we could run more ferries. We could expand the contractor employee ferry. And
how quickly do you feel like you're going to pivot to the data that you receive? I mean, if you're launching in, say, hypothetically, the second week of June, realistically here, and you have, let's say you get 30 days of data, the first 30 days of the summer, and you see that you consistently run out of standby spots, are you willing to make that kind of pivot quickly so that we can all get through the rest of the summer without too much of a headache?
Yes, I mean, that was our plan the entire time. Like I said, we went into the current ratio based on historical data, and then we have to evaluate the new data based on trends with the option of reservations available, and we'll make adjustments. Our intention is to make everyone's experience better, not to just shift problems from one side of the spectrum to the other. So we'll be looking very closely at how we properly balance this to get the benefits that we hope to get across the board for everyone. We, like I said before, we went into this problem with the employee contractor flow as a main consideration going in. And that's not to prioritize them over anyone else in terms of access to the transportation, but understanding how the flows impact the overall operation.
Employees can't get out there, then nobody can enjoy any of the amenities that the island has. I suppose in this case, then what I would ask kindly is that as you guys are reviewing this real-time data, I mean, I'm a big technology data nerd. I know that we can study 1 or 2 months into this thing and go, you know what, we really need to make this change. I think it would go very far with all of the residents and the business owners on the island if you could maybe keep us abreast of how it's working every, 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe send us an updated email 5-6 weeks in and say, you know what, we've been looking at the data. Here are the first challenges we have. Here's how we're going to address them. I think communication with the employee and resident population has been minimal from Bald Head Limited in terms of all this transportation stuff. I know it's because you're working very hard behind the scenes, but I think without any communication, we all have felt so out of the loop that it creates an unnecessary amount of stress. That if we can know as we get into this thing, how well it's working and where you're willing to make those changes, I know that then I could turn around and communicate that to my staff and say, you know what, they just sent us an update. They said, so far it's so good. Or, hey, we're considering adding a second boat on Saturday afternoons at 4 o'clock or whatever that is. Do you think that Limited could make some sort of agreement to send us some continued communication so that nobody feels like they're totally left out of the loop as to how it's going so far?
Why we're here. Yeah, I think part of the challenge, particularly with this project, and what you guys don't know is we've been working on this and actually delayed implementation because of the complexity of what we've been working through, is at a certain point, we wanted to time the information so that we had the ability to sit in front of you and put out what we knew as facts and actually answer your questions. I think up to this point, there were so many things that we were still trying to put a nice bow on before we even contemplated going live, that earlier conversations would have probably created more questions than answers. And so that's kind of where we were with the timing on the communications right now is when we're available and ready, I think, to answer those questions. In terms of future communications with the data, with the ability to reach out maybe a little bit better through the system, we can certainly try to do that as best we can. We'll do the best we can. In terms of any other operational changes and things like that, those are things that we go through, and you mentioned some about unintended consequences, or someone did earlier. We're trying to minimize those to the greatest extent possible. And sometimes the complexity of the problem is difficult to communicate. So we need to boil it down and make sure that we're sending the right message. And sometimes that opportunity just doesn't come up because we get overcome by events, but we will just certainly try to do our best, keep everyone informed on how this is going. And you will have your own feedback loop, I'm sure, internally amongst the other businesses and the residents on how it's going. And we'd like to hear that feedback as well.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so now we will go to our next person in line. And let's see, we have Joanne Levitan, and I am allowing you to speak. If you'll unmute yourself and please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Joanne Levitan, 21 Kilson Row. I'm a fractional share owner. I was just wondering down the road if you would ever consider a fare structure that takes into account whether or not you're using the tram, because I never use the tram and I feel like I'm subsidizing it. So I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you.
Hey, Joanne, thanks for the question. The utility commission obviously approves our tariff. And part of looking at, like Chad had mentioned earlier, looking at our ticket box or basket and some of the other things is how that structure is going to work with future tram rides. We can't predict what the utility commission will approve or disapprove, and we really do need to look at some of those things. But yeah, right now we've got a lot of different ticket options, and if you're not using the tram, it's very difficult for us to restructure a very specific ticket at a lower cost outside of the ones that we already have.
Okay, and we will go to the next question. Let's see. So I see Ann Quarles, and I will allow you to talk if you will please unmute yourself and introduce yourself and your question, please.
Hello, this is Daryl. Ann had to leave. We live on 8 Cape Fear Trail. My question is one of the logistics. You may have covered this, but I think I've missed it. So we have bulk tickets. We go and get a QR code, and then we go to the app, and then we use that QR code to purchase another ticket and a tram reservation, and not have to use our credit card to purchase the ticket. Is that correct? How do we use the QR code to go into the app to reserve, make a reservation and to reserve a tram?
You own a bulk 40?
Yes.
So when you trade in the paper tickets you have, you can choose to get more paper tickets, but you would not be able to make a ferry reservation. If you want to make ferry and tram reservations, what you'd want to do is turn those remaining tickets in. They will be traded for what is basically a coupon code. And then when you go online to book your ride and tram, you use the coupon code to basically pay for it. It'll be a no charge transaction that then generates a QR code that you use to scan to get on to the ferry.
Okay, so you basically use your coupon code rather than your credit card to purchase you use the thing that you get in lieu to get your QR code that you pay for instead of using your credit card. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. It'll be a zero charge transaction when you input the coupon code.
Now, the follow-up of that is that when we bought the bulk tickets, we buy them because they were less expensive than buying individual tickets. Moving forward, that advantage will be lost, or will you? How do you? So basically, will the price of our tickets go up because we no longer will be buying bulk tickets?
You will still have the option to buy bulk tickets. The price of tickets is regulated by the North Carolina Utility Commission. That is not changing with the implementation of this system. All tickets within the tariff remain available and they remain the same price. The only change is how we're able to offer the ability to make a ferry and tram reservation associated with those tickets within the tariff. This is the way for the bulk 40 because they're eligible within the tariff for a tram ride to also be able to connect that tram ride to a ferry reservation. And the coupon code is the way that happens.
I see. So it'll be coupon codes that you buy in bulk and you use the coupon codes to get your QR code and to make your reservations.
Correct. And then each time you scan a QR code, it basically counts down the number of uses of that coupon code for future reservations.
Okay.
So once you've scanned once you've used your 80th QR, or actually the other thing that's nice now is you'll get one QR code for both rides. So you don't have to have two tickets anymore. You just have your QR code. It'll be good for the departure and the arrival, or vice versa. But once that QR code or once that coupon is used for 80 rides, you'll just have to renew it and buy a new coupon code.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing to follow up on that we probably should have talked about. So right now, when we scan all of your paper tickets or your iCards, unfortunately, that is a barcode. everything now with app technology is QR code. The machines don't read the way they have to. So we have to get all new scanning equipment. That's part and parcel of moving into the new system on any electronic system. The unfortunate thing, and that's why we have this coupon issue and why we have these issues primarily with the bulk 40 and the bulk 80, is because they're all issued with a barcode, but everything today to get the app and to do online is all basically a QR code. So we had to overcome that obstacle as well.
Okay, so we will move to the next question. Let's see. And that is Jeff Kenny, and I am allowing to talk. Jeff, if you will unmute yourself and please introduce yourself and then your question.
Hi, Jeff Kenny, 3 Grove Court. It sounds as though you can only make a tram reservation if you have a ferry reservation. And if that's the case, what happens if you legitimately, not gaming the system, but you legitimately, there are no tram reservations, yet you get on the ferry through the stand, the standby? Especially getting off the island. Can you get a tram reservation if the ferry reservations are full?
You can always call the office and see if they can put a pickup in with their schedule.
Because when a lot of people, don't use as the trams, and if the first 100 get booked, then it seems to me that you ought to be able to bypass not buying tickets and being able to then make a tram reservation because you have a ticket, you just don't have a reservation.
Yeah, we have the ability to do that. You just need to call in and ask for it. We built that in just in case for like special occasions and things like that.
Okay, so it'll be how you can do it now. You call as opposed to doing it online.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And let's see, we have Elizabeth Capil, and I will allow you to talk. If you'll unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question, please. Let's see. And Elizabeth, if you're there, if you will unmute yourself so we can hear you. And if not, then I can pivot to some questions on email next. Okay, so we will move on. All right, so let's pivot to some email questions here. Let's see, we have 4 questions from Richard Salmony. Number 1, why are we launching this in June when we see the largest volumes of visitors to the island?
So as we kind of touched on, the development process required a lot of extra work. And so timing wise, we had juggled a lot of different options, which was at a certain point, we wanted to try to roll this out before Memorial Day. But we had some, particularly with the bulk tickets, that a lot of people have been concerned with. Those were probably some of our biggest challenges, and we wanted to work through it and make sure we got it right. So we ended up not being able to roll this out prior to Memorial Day as we had wanted to. And then we looked at the next available opportunity where we had reasonable ridership, but that we were still going to be able to hopefully gain some benefit of the system, and to a certain extent, kind of expose a few of the faults while we still had the ability to recover and potentially have the ability to revert back if we had to. And that's if a total failure of the system. And that period is now. So ridership at the beginning of June is not quite as heavy as it picks up near the end of June and the beginning of July through August. And so that's kind of why we decided to just go ahead and move forward now, because we think the benefits of the system will far outweigh the costs, assuming we don't have a major catastrophic failure. And we hope and we think we've planned enough that the probability of that happening is fairly minimal.
And also remember, we're not flipping a switch and turning the old system off and turning a new system on. We're flipping a new system on and running it parallel with the existing paper ticket system and the existing system we have right now.
Okay, so the other questions have been addressed, so I'll go to the next email. The question is from Courtney Toledo. Are the presenters using the term coupon code and QR code interchangeably?
No, they are not. The coupon code is a code entered for a method of payment for a zero cost transaction associated with the bulk 40 tickets. The QR code is the actual boarding ticket that will be generated after you have made your ticket purchase.
Okay, so I'm going to pivot to some of the questions we've had on the Q&A session online and try to skim through these to answer as many as we can. One is from an anonymous attendee. So if my husband comes to the island in our personal boat, but leaves the boat on island and returns home via the ferry, from what I just heard, it sounds like the QR code would use 2 tickets rather than just using 1 ticket like he can currently.
The option there is to purchase the one-way ticket, which is reduced cost.
Okay. Let's see.
And by the way, that ticket can only be purchased at the window on the island, not online.
Okay. There was one question about checking bags and obtaining tram reservation without buying an electronic ticket.
Same thing as now, no change. If you don't buy the ticket, you buy the paper, it's the same thing.
So the tram ride is always associated with the purchase of a ticket, whether it's a bulk ticket or whether it's a general fare ticket. It is necessary to have one of those tickets to make the reservation. I think without some more specifics, it's difficult to determine what scenario is being presented.
So as a follow-up, if this helps, the next one right after that, as a full-time homeowner, I often do one-way tram reservations. Is this possible to get one-way ticket in tram?
Not currently under the NCUC approved tariff. The one-way ticket is not entitled to tram service.
Okay. Another question, how far in advance can a ticket be purchased?
A ticket can be purchased as far in advance as they would like to make it. We just ask that it be 3 hours before their planned travel at a minimum.
Okay. And to confirm, I believe you've spoken on this before, but just to answer the question again. So if I have 50 paper bulk tickets now, I go in person to the window and can convert those to electronic.
Yes, you can choose to convert them into the coupon code for your remaining use of your bulk 40. that would allow you to get online and do tram and ferry reservations. Or if making ferry reservations is not critical to you and you like the convenience of the paper tickets, you can have them reprinted with the new QR code. And then we can make tram reservations over the phone if you would like.
Okay. Next question. If I am coming Friday, June 9th, so after this has launched, do I have to wait until around the 7th to make a reservation? Or do I make a tram reservation the old way just in case?
If you make a tram reservation before June 5th, you'll do it the traditional way. After June 5th, we will be able to handle some reservations over the phone. It'll probably be a manual process while we're doing transition. But once we go live, planned for June 7th, all tram reservations you would have to make online in the methods that we've already talked about. If necessary, you can still call in if you haven't been able to transition your bulk 40s or something like that, and we can still take a reservation that way.
So kind of as a follow-up, a separate question, what will happen to all the reservations currently in the BHI system?
All of those reservations, and there are over 5,000 of them that we have currently in our current system, they are all being imported into the new system prior to going live in the new system. So they will already be embedded and accounted for.
So the people, again, that have made tram reservations prior to the switchover, they do not need to go back online and make a new reservation. Their reservation will be captured and we will load that into the system.
Okay. Here's a question about baggage. Will all items of baggage require a tag to be issued and attached to each bag?
We offer online the ability to print out, and this new system will do the same thing, to print out a ticket with your name and address on it if you've input that information, and it'll make it easy to attach to your bags. We are not scanning the baggage at this time. That will be a capability that we'll continue to assess the advantages of down the line. But we do ask anytime, even today, that any baggage that is put on board one of the ferries to have a name tag and contact information on it. And we prefer and request that folks put those tags on their bags before they pull into the terminal to allow folks to transition their bags out of their vehicle and then get parked as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Okay, and here's a question. Can you define what a significant delay or circumstance is? And they cite specifically like a medical situation. If you can just expound, please.
So because we operate on such a continuous schedule, we would look like something out of the ordinary. Vessel traffic in the river that we have to slow down for that puts us a few minutes behind, we wouldn't consider that significant. If, for example, we're 10 minutes out of the Bulkhead Island cut and we get a code 1 medical emergency call and we have to turn the ferry around, that could consume an entire run, to be honest. And that was what we would consider a significant delay. Also significant would be a equipment casualty on one of the vessels that requires us to switch out boats, that takes time to get crew together to transport the boat or to get the boat running and operating safely again. Again, that's another significant delay. And again, because we run a continuous schedule, we will absorb some of those delays and kind of restart on schedule as soon as we can. And then sometimes we do have the ability to kind of reduce the impact by catching up some time, but we have virtually no elasticity in our schedule. And so it makes it very hard for us to make up time, but significant would be something that is not just the course of normal operations involving traffic, equipment issues or minor equipment issues or weather.
Okay, and then we have a question. Also, how will line cutting be addressed for the standby line? And they give an example of someone who's holding a spot in the line, and then there may be additional folks who join them in line, literally cutting in front, is how it's worded.
This is a perpetual problem that is very difficult to guarantee any resolution. I mean, obviously, we would like everyone to be courteous and respectful. If we do have situations that are brought to our attention, there are people available within the terminal that can be contacted to come down and try to address the situation.
Okay.
Other than we don't have the ability to allocate resources just to control line cutting, and it's been a problem since the beginning of the ferry system. And I know that that it is an issue. I know that there's a lot of folks that get frustrated with it. We're hoping that maybe the system will resolve some of it, but I think there's still going to be some residual problems there. We're going to do the best we can.
The biggest issue with line cutting today compared to history is frankly, it's the contractor ticket that's doing that. And to a lesser extent, maybe the employee ticket that is doing that. The other tariffs, the other tickets are not doing that. We're having a building boom on the island, but I also would tell you too, as we start to move forward with the system, the contractors will start to recognize that it's probably best for them to ride the contractor boat. That crew and that check-in process on the contractor boat, if you've ridden that, is a little bit different in terms of where how that works. If you notice that the primary contractor captains, they actually come out of the wheelhouse and are down on deck when those passengers are boarding. That is not the case on the main ferry for turnaround reasons, but we do have the ability to manage that. And if we can push the ticket classes that may be causing that problem to ride the schedule that they're supposed to ride, we should be able to see some alleviate of that.
Okay, and I believe you may have answered, let's just confirm, can one-way reservations be made using the bulk 40 tickets?
Yeah, I can.
I do believe the system will allow you to do it. But we haven't fully contemplated that as a scenario yet. There is, when you go into the system, there's a one-way and round trip option. But that's a question I can't fully answer today.
The existing tariff regarding primarily for that question would be a bulk 40. The existing tariff, the way it's structured is that is a round trip type of scenario. It's not to buy a bulk 40 just to travel one way. So in terms of how the system works, I believe, like Bion said, that you can do that and do a one-way on a bulk 40. But remember, the bulk 40 ticket itself was designed to be, a dual ticket piece where you come over on one piece of the ticket and you travel back on the second leg. But I believe you'll be able to go ahead and do that within the system right now on the bulk 40s.
And can you answer that with the bulk 80s?
The bulk 80 is not a reservation eligible ticket for the ferry.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, this may be the last question here. Can paper tickets that we have on hand that were not purchased as part of the 40 or 80 bulk books be traded in at the ticket window for an electronic ticket code for future use in the same way the bulk paper tickets can be?
It will be exchanged for a QR code that may be used in the future. And remember, even if you don't have a reservation that QR code, just like the paper ticket, is good for use as a standby at any time. And so they will be able to go to the window, do the exchange, they'll be issued a new QR code, and they can move forward. If it happens to be a general fare ticket and they want to make a reservation at that time, the person at the window can help them do that. They will not be issued a coupon code like the bulk 40. They will just get a replacement ticket.
Remember, Pam, right now, all paper tickets have a barcode. So if someone has a bulk 40 pack today, they're barcodes. The problem will be is when we go into the new system, the systems will not be able to read the old barcode technology. So the tickets, the paper tickets look identical, except instead of a barcode, it's a QR code on the ticket. And that's why we need to go ahead and allow people to exchange so that we have they're on the system that can be read by the scanners.
So I have a follow-up. They're asking, will the bulk 80 tickets be used as one ticket leaving the island?
Well, the bulk 80 is also a round trip ticket. They can use it in any direction. They get 160 rides, and whatever direction they are using it, it'll scan the same way from either point up to 160.
Okay.
For example, they come over, they happen to have a friend who has a boat, or they have a boat, they come over, they have a bulk 80 and they want to ride the ferry back. For whatever reason, they can certainly use it as a one-way. It's just going to count down their total allocation available.
Okay, and the last question here, someone's asking about the baggage size restrictions from, let's see, Miss Susan Park. The baggage size restrictions are a bit confusing. Do the large plastic bins that have historically been sold at the ferry meet the new size restrictions?
Yes, they do. Within the tariff, it's a 48 quart cooler or container size and no more than 50 pounds. Anything over those two measurements is considered oversized or overweight. But yes, the traditional large container is perfectly acceptable.
And no, we're not going to have scales and be weighing baggage. That's not the intent. I think that we all know the cruise, there's a difference between a 48 quart plastic container and a 250 quart fully iced tub that they're trying to get on the boat. So we're not going to be weighing bags. It's going to, again, kind of be on the honor system.
Okay, one final question typed in here from Robina Hogan. Will you finally allow us to use some of the old color tickets that did not get changed?
If somebody's trying to use tickets that were issued pre-2010, that no pun intended, but that ship has sailed. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to do that. Remember, the way we'll be able to know, and we'll all know, is the older barcoded tickets will not register anymore. And again, the way the system works and the way the Utilities Commission works is a 90-day period to transition. And like I mentioned before, folks that have bulk 40s, bulk 80s, whatever it may be, we will take care of those folks. We will take care of that. Hopefully they'll do it in the 90 days because they're going to want to ride. So they're going to want a ticket that's going to be valid. We will work with that. But if these tickets are sounding like the old colored tickets, I know exactly what they're talking about now. We used to have all red and all yellow tickets and all green tickets. The current system wouldn't read those tickets. So no, that's save that to sell on eBay.
Okay, I do have one final, just this would be a pertinent question and then we'll wrap it up. So if someone won't be heading to the island until next year or this fall and has a bulk 40 pack, how can they convert their tickets? Can they do it at a later time? You mentioned that 90-day conversion.
As I noted, we'd like everyone to do the transition within 90 days. That allows us to move on in the system, but we have the ability to do it at a later time. If there's a special circumstance that folks just can't get down here in that time to do that. So we'll do the best we can to work through that down the line as necessary.
And that wraps up our questions. Thank you. And just so attendees online in person know, we do have another session on Tuesday, and we will allow questions at that time as well. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. And we appreciate everyone's time and information, and look forward to sharing this with everyone to help give information. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.